I'd like to thank you for, first and foremost, the breath of life. This morning, Father Lord, we know many persons may have not made it out of bed this morning, but we thank you that we are here, Father Lord, and in high spirits. Father Lord, we are here to discuss on digital economy and the way forward in Dominica and the Caribbean by extension. We ask that this discussion is fruitful and that we learn a lot from it here, Father Lord. We thank you, and those who are on their way, you grant them traveling mercies. In your name we pray. Amen. 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 So good morning once again, and welcome to this dialogue here this morning, presented to you by ICA Dominica. Digital Agriculture Dialogue, leveraging digital tools for sustainable agriculture. Let me say a special good morning here to our panelists. I will introduce them shortly. And of course, good morning to you. And good morning to the media we have here. And today we welcome you to the Digital Agriculture Dialogue here in Dominica, a pivotal step in our collective journey towards transforming agro-food systems through innovation. As we gather under the theme, leveraging digital tools for sustainable agriculture, we recognize the urgency and opportunities before us. Oh, sorry about that, sorry. Technology, 1 second, sorry. I will have to use my phone, 1 second. It seems like technology want to have all of us this morning. So let me start back. So today we welcome you to our Digital Agriculture Dialogue here in Dominica, a pivotal step in our collective journey towards transforming agro-food systems through innovation. As we gather under the theme, leveraging digital tools for sustainable agriculture, we recognize the urgency and the opportunities before us. Agriculture in the Eastern Caribbean faces profound challenges, from climate viability to low productivity, but digitization offers a pathway to resilience, efficiency, and growth. Today, we spotlight how tools like drones, mobile apps, AI, and digital platforms can empower our farmers, optimize supply chain, and reduce the region's food import bill by 25% as envisioned by CARICOM 2025 by 25 plus 5. From ICA's digital agriculture drones to the FAO-supported drone initiative, we have seen glimpses of what's possible. But progress demands collaboration. Today's dialogue brings together policymakers, technologists, farmers, and entrepreneurs to share insight, build partnership, and develop actionable steps towards digital-enabled agricultural future. Let this be more than a discussion. Let it ignite tangible change. As moderator, I encourage frank exchange, bold ideas, and commitment to action. Together, we can position Dominica and the Eastern Caribbean at the forefront of digital agriculture revolution. Thank you to ICA and our partners, and all of you for joining this critical conversation here this morning. So thank you, and let's begin. We're going to welcome now to the microphone to give us some opening remarks, Mr. Anthony Cyril, technical specialist at ICA here in Dominica. Let's make him feel welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, everybody, to our guests, our panelists, and most importantly, those following us online. It's a pleasure being here today. It's a privilege to join you here today as we convene the critical dialogue on agriculture and its process in being digitized, a transformative force for Dominica and the wider Caribbean. At ICA, we believe this is not just a technical shift, but a revolution, one that echoes the historical leaps from mechanization to the Green Revolution, and now to what we have here presently. Various changes throughout history have driven the efficiency of the ag sector. This has resulted in yields and profitability that was once thought unable to be achieved. So we're going to go back in history a little bit. So we say circa 10,000 BC, so the first of such changes when human beings began settling and developing civilized societies. Secondly was the mechanization era, the 1800 to 1930, followed by the Green Revolution of the 1960s, which saw develop crops that are resistant to diseases and introduction and use of agrochemicals. Lastly, the era of genetic modification technologies from 1999 to 2005. The most recent of these periodic changes, which is occurring currently, is labeled the digital agriculture revolution, which seeks to marry the present technologies and data management systems to improve the sector. It is proposed that over the next decade, ag and food production systems will realize marked transformation to the introduction of such technologies which will have major impacts on the value chain. These technologies can be categorized as mobile devices, as well as diagnosis of crop diseases, and the related treatments will improve efficiency. Improving ICT within the ag-food sector promises increased potential gains. However, introduction and application are key. Hence, the need arises for the creation of avenues where farmers, producers, can have hands-on access to these technologies and utilize them in developing real-time solutions for on-farm issues. In order to advance these things in the sector, a multi-stakeholder discourse is necessary, since it helps close the gap between investors, farmers, tech developers, and politicians, or policymakers, if you want to say that, while guaranteeing that solutions are workable, inclusive, and scalable. Governments are to be knowledgeable to create infrastructure and regulation that support farmers, and farmers need easily accessible and reasonable price instruments. Financial institutions require workable models to finance adoption, and private sector innovation must be in line with local realities. Public-private partnerships may expand successful experiments into widely used solutions, while collaboration also tackles structural issues like data governance, literacy in the technological era, and connectivity. So why the need for these technologies in agriculture in Dominica? Dominica, like Mr. Williams said, Earl White said, Dominican ag sector, like the rest of the Eastern Caribbean, is pretty prone to climate change, fragmented farmlands, and productivity gaps. Yet, the tools that are presented today, they offer precision agriculture such as drones, blockchains which can certify the quality of Dominican organic cocoa, bay oil, and coffee for the premium markets, and mobile platforms such as the ICA Agri Exit app, which put real-time extension advice in farmers' pockets, piloted successfully in Antigua, St. Vincent, and the Bahamas, and which is ripe for scaling up here. So we can talk about ICA's commitment for these technologies at a hemispheric priority. Under our 2022-2026 medium-term plan, agri-food system will have ICA's 7 key priorities. Why? Because data-driven farming can, 1, boost resilience against hurricane and drought, 2, cut costs through smart irrigation and pest management, and 3, connect smallholders to markets, finance, and knowledge. Yet, as today's theme highlights, adoption barriers persist. As mentioned previously, the connectivity gaps, affordability, and literacy of the technologies. This is where collaboration is non-negotiable. So we have a call to action for Partners for Progress, and to unlock Dominica's potential, we propose that there's a policy synergy which align national strategies such as the NRDS, the Dominican National Resilient Development Strategy, with CARICOM's 25 by 25 strategy, the OECS's FAST strategy, and prioritizing rural broadband and agri-tech subsidies. We can talk about farmer-centric tools, where scale apps like the AgriX that I mentioned or others with localized content and training, and because these technologies must speak the language of the farmers, make it relatable to them. And 3, climate-smart investments, where you can partner with telecom agencies, insurance, and financial techs to de-risk the adoption for smallholders, which is very important. So in closing, this agri-revolution is here. Let us ensure it is inclusive, practical, and transformative for Dominica's farmers. ICA stands ready to support this journey through technical cooperation, knowledge, sharing, and fostering the partnerships we'll discuss today. Together, we can cultivate not just smarter farmers, but a more food-secure society. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cyril, for your opening remarks. Moving forward with the program, we'd like to welcome Mr. Charles Grant, IT Manager at Jolly's Pharmacy. Let's welcome him. Let's make him feel welcome.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the media, folks from ICA and other ministries, farmers, persons involved in agriculture. My remarks here today is sort of to lay the foundation for these gentlemen and what they are about to present to you. So a little about myself. My name is Charles Grant, originally from Wesley. I've been in IT for about 25 years, so that's why the beard is showing, the white. But I didn't really pick any particular path in IT. I just came out from high school and I started this. Anyway, moving forward, I started a path in cybersecurity, so I currently have a ton of certificates in cybersecurity, and I hold a master's in cybersecurity and digital forensics. Today, I basically want to talk more about innovation. So, could you show of hands, everybody in here, how long ago did you see a drone in use? Or have you seen a drone in use in the last 3 months? A drone. Have you seen a drone in use in the last 3 months? You just seen a drone. It passed. A kid have it in his backyard. Most people here. Okay. How many of you have seen that drone used in agriculture? So all of you from ICA. Okay. So most of the folks from ICA have seen it. Those folks are not from ICA, their hands are probably down. But the shift, agriculture, that example is the sort of shift that you're looking for to see in agriculture. There was a picture of the horse and buggy in New York City. I can't remember the year. But 13 years after that, the same exact location, there was no horse and buggy. It was all automotive vehicles. Now, 13 years before that, the folks that were doing horse and buggy, their business was good. But that sort of technological shift only took 13 years. All the stables that were breeding horses, all the guys that were building the carriages and stuff like that, in 13 years, all that had gone. Everybody had put the horse out to the pasture and now bought an automobile. Today, this shift is happening, and it's happening even more dramatically. If somebody has a clicker, we probably click to see how many times the word AI is mentioned here today. So this is 1 or 2. We can keep counting. Now, why does this matter in agriculture? One, we have a lot of young farmers leaving, or young farmers are not joining farming. Young persons are not joining farming. However, with the digital tech tools, it makes it more appetizing for them because it becomes less of a job and more of, well, I go to the farm and I press a few buttons and things happen. And you can get the data and actually know exactly what's happening and stuff like that. So my fellow colleagues here on the thing will go through all of the different innovations and stuff that is happening in locally and probably what's happening in the region. One of the issues that I'll mention that I often hear when I hear persons talk about farming is the connectivity on farms. Technology actually already has a solution for this, and folks in agriculture can look at what it's called LoRaWAN, LoRaWAN. It's actually a low frequency technology that actually connects sensors on farms. So most sensors cannot use normal internet to connect to farms. But with LoRaWAN technology, you can connect farms site to site for miles. Our terrain sort of prevents us from doing site to site, but with enough sensors on most farms in Dominica, you could actually get everything that you need. So what we need to look at is at that particular technology. And anybody that want more information on it, I'm sure you can find me somewhere. So I'm not going to be long. I just wanted to kind of whet your appetite for what the guys are saying, and I'm really trying not to go into anything that I think that they might mention. So we are having one of the greatest technology shifts, as I mentioned earlier, and AI is rapidly evolving that. What most folks don't see is what AI is actually driving. Most people think of AI as you go to ChatGPT, DeepSeek, Claude, Gemini, Copilot, any one of those, and you see a chat box, you tell it something, you say, write a proposal for me for my speech today, or write a proposal on an agricultural sustainable plan for Dominica, and you get something. The other side of that is AI is pushing prototyping and what companies are able to deliver in a really short space of time. So while we might say, as usual in the Caribbean, we have to find the policies and we have to go look at this and spend some time to look at this, other countries are not doing that. They are rapidly jumping on board this thing, and as they are going, they are sort of in parallel trying to figure out what are the necessary policies. But in the Caribbean, we always seem to sort of want to put all of the policies in place first and then develop this thing. AI is not going to wait for us. And countries are going to surpass us and be able to even produce more for us and come back and sell it to us in a short space of time. So we really need to come up with a plan that allows innovation, but at the same time, we are sort of securing our digital sovereignty and ensuring that it's what's best for us. But we have to do this in parallel to the innovation that we are pushing, and we should not try to find, because every week something changes in AI. The policy you put yesterday is out the window tomorrow, guaranteed. So just to end, governments need to invest in digital infrastructure in agriculture. The public sector need to fund innovation and agro-tech startups. Farmers need to try new tools this season. One app, one drone, one data-driven practice. Youth need to sort of think about what their future is and how they can participate in this new innovation. We can grow the crops, we can grow the ideas, we can grow the systems, and most importantly, we can grow the people. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grant, for your remarks. And while you were speaking about the drones, you know, myself and Mr. Cyril, we had the opportunity to see some of the new agricultural drones in action. And I remember the instructor was relaying to us that what it will take one man 6 hours to do. He does it with a drone in a matter of minutes. Less than 6 hours can be a full day on the farm. And you know, he does that with his drone in a matter of minutes. So we really need to take this discussion here serious. Okay, so we're moving on with the program. Ladies and gentlemen, and I only, while I was sitting there, realized that I did not introduce myself to you. I do apologize for that. My name is Earl White, and I am the president of the National Association of Youth in Agriculture. I see a few of our members here. Good morning, good morning. Yes, and I'll be your moderator for the day. I guess that's obvious, but I'll be your moderator. We're gonna move straight into the panel discussion. Oh, presentations first. Okay, so we're gonna move into the presentations first. So, to my right, my left, my immediate left here, Mr. Bruni. Also, we're not going. Okay. So we're going to allow our panelists to present themselves and, you know, just tell us briefly about themselves. So we're going to start.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Macaulay Ismail. I have been an agricultural extension officer with the Ministry of Agriculture for 13 years. During the course of that time in 2019, I had the opportunity to participate in a drone training. It was the use of drones for participatory mapping. I will explain a bit what that is later. Since then, I have received several other trainings in the use of drones for disaster risk mitigation, other applications in agriculture, as well as data collection, etc. I will be presenting a topic on the use of drones in agriculture and how we can make agriculture more sustainable with the use of these tools.
Let's make him feel welcome. Thank you, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jeffrey Bruni, founder of Kubuli Farms. Some of you may know the coconut water Glow Cocoa. That's one of Kubuli Farms' products. That's our baby here. I've been in agriculture for 34 years now. Both here in Dominica, but also in the US, Europe, a little bit in Asia and Africa, a little bit. But the last 34 years, yes. I did my professional training at Cornell and specialized in hydroponics and aquaponics. I moved back to Dominica 6 years ago to make my contribution to the agriculture sector here in Dominica.
Thank you. Mr. Theophil.
Good morning. My name is Derek Theophil. I am originally from the community of Newtown. Joined fisheries many moons ago, more than 20 years ago, as a fisheries liaison officer. Quickly found a passion and a love in GIS, and then subsequent to that data, developing databases and so forth for fisheries. So much so, copying Dominica a UN award for excellence in public service that we received in 2011, thereabout. So we did some great work. And since then, I have continued my passion in data, excelling in embracing and building the fisheries data systems, and offering support to my colleagues across the region for fisheries data and information. Further to that, I started working with R, which is the tool that really revolutionized my own work in data. and added a lot of value to my work in automation and reproducible reporting. And then after that, I got a master's in natural resource and environmental management, largely built on the body of work I've been doing in fisheries over all those times, and fit that work from the master's back into the work I'm doing at fisheries right now. So right now, I'm currently the Chief Fisheries Officer, acting, of course. You know how it goes with government. But I do continue still teaching a lot. My colleagues here at agriculture, my colleagues overseas as well, and my colleagues in the rest of government in tools of Kobo Toolbox and R. I'm also an ambassador for Kobo Toolbox. So if you need to know more about these tools, I am ready and willing to assist and help in terms of you getting yourself up and running with them. Thank you. I'll be talking a bit about that today as well. Thank you.
Mr. Riviere.
Yes, good morning. My name is Daniel Riviere. I hold a bachelor's degree in computing with an emphasis in software systems. Worked with the government for quite a few years, I think over 12 years, with the ICT department. But also did a lot of software development during that period, but my passion always comes back to agriculture. And this is why I'm here today. Been working on many systems or several systems, but specifically I have a deep interest in data and data collection and data processing and how we could use data to advance our agriculture locally rather than, you know, work smart instead of working hard. So, thank you.
Mr. Tong.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Robert Tong. I am the coordinator of the digital economy, but before that, I am an entrepreneur. I've known business all my life. I've had great models of my father, who has taught me everything that I know, so it's always important to have a good mentor. Today, I'll be speaking on a small device that can make a huge difference. And most of us even have it, but it's all about how we use these devices, you know. And we all know that in business, margins are very small, so any losses erodes in those margins. And if you erode those margins, it means your business is dead. So it's important for us to be aware of these and to manage that. So I look forward to presenting to you and hoping that at the end of this, some of us can implement some or all of the things that we're hearing from all of the panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, you heard from the panelists. They have introduced themselves. They are all versed in their various fields and ready to dialogue here with us. So we're going straight into the panel discussion at this moment. The presentations, digital presentations, yes. So let's welcome Mr. Ishmael. Before, just 1 second before, TR-833, you need to move your vehicle, please. You're obstructing someone outside. TR-833 in the yard, yes. So, as we were saying, let's welcome Mr. Ishmael to do his presentation.
Okay, good morning again, everybody. Okay. So my presentation will be about the use of drones in agriculture. So basically, this presentation will explain how drones or uncrewed aerial systems benefit the agricultural sector. A drone really and truly is a tool that is really a vehicle. As we mentioned here, it is an uncrewed aerial vehicle, meaning there is no pilot. But what makes these tools interesting is over the years, the payloads that we can attach to these tools. And these payloads help us with various things like data collection, as well as even spraying and applying pesticides now to curb with pest and disease problems. Yeah, so the use of drones in agriculture. Today we will focus on the uses of drones in crop and livestock management, what we call precision agriculture, pest and disease control, sustainable land management, and of course, disaster risk mitigation. Okay, so for crop and livestock management. For crop and livestock management, when we look at crop monitoring, when I started the training in 2019, it was an approach to basically participatory mapping. What that is that we all know the saying that a picture tells 1,000 words. With the drones, we learn to basically bring these words to life for the public. So what you do is that normally a drone would only produce a beautiful image, very scenic, an aerial view. We learned that these images also contain information, data about elevation, data about plant health. We could do assessments, so measurements with these tools by simply flying over fields and capturing images. Those images are then stitched together using photogrammetry software. And what we have is exports, sort of like satellite imagery. So I guess everybody here is familiar with Google Maps. However, the problem with satellite imagery for an agriculturist is that I would zoom in, but not be able to determine whether that tree would be a mango tree or a kenip tree. Would not be able to determine whether it would be just empty grasslands there or it would be young vegetables that were planted. With the drones, however, and high-def imagery, we are now able to do things like zoom into fields and crop count. So like he was saying, what somebody would not be able to do, what somebody would take 6 hours to do, they would do in a few minutes. Over the years, I have worked with the ministry for 13 years, and my team and I, some of them are there in the crowd with me today, we have captured over 20,000 acres in the period of about 3 years. Before that, as an extension officer on my foot, I tell you that would be nowhere near possible. So these things help us to analyze our crops on a large scale, analyze the land. We can also see crop health based on different spectrums, because like I say, the drones carry different payloads. So these days, they don't only have normal RGB cameras, but they have payloads that enable us to see different spectrums that our eyes cannot detect, and that will help us understand the health of our crops. It would help us understand things like pest and disease spread, even moisture in certain areas, flooding, etc. We also use them, so when we get the photo, we stitch them together and we get the map. What that does is that gives us an accurate, by centimeter level, depiction of the farm. So I can now help a farmer using just a drone and my computer, sit with a farmer and help him plot and line out acres and acres of farm with the accuracy of a few centimeters off. With regards to livestock, we have seen advancement with the use of drones in livestock monitoring and tracking. So we see that we have thermal imaging. I know for those of us who have livestock or those who work in the livestock industry, From since the dawn of time, even the Bible tells us that the shepherd will always have to go and look after the sheep. So with the drones, we're making that a little easier for the shepherd now with things like thermal imaging, that you can send up a drone and it would be able to do things like cattle count. You would be able to detect or monitor your pens to see if there are any invaders. You know, if any dogs are around, we know that dogs are a problem for our sheep and so on. So you can monitor these type of things, as well as cattle rangers over the world now use drones to range cattle. So what they do is they attach speakers to the drones, and they would herd the cattle with that, using the noises to drive the cattle to and fro without ever leaving their base. We also see, once again, what the drones do is they give us a bird's eye view, and that gives us a better picture of our land, so it helps us allocate resources. So in terms of livestock, we know that sometimes pasture identification, pasture maintenance is a big issue. So the drones help the farmers with that. You can use it to basically outline your pastures. If you have to rotate your livestock, then you do so. So effective planning is what we're really getting at here when we talk about the use of drones and photogrammetry. We can also do livestock housing assessment. The drones have 3D capabilities, so you can fly over your land, over your livestock holding. You can get accurate measurements of your pens if needs be. You could also do 3D flights that would give you different dimensions. We're talking about height, length, width of your farm, down to, like I said, centimeter level. So it saves a lot of costs by just having that one tool that can give you all this different information about your farm. Next, please. So drones help us with, when we talk about drones and photogrammetry, we talk about precision agriculture. That is basically using the tools that we have here to get the best results, maximize our results by doing proper assessments, making sound decisions through accurate research. Multispectral imaging, like I said, enables us to view our farm through a different lens. So normally you would watch your field, and let's say you have a field of Irish potatoes planted, and you have an acre of Irish potatoes. At first glance, you would watch the field coming into work day by day, and everything would seem all right to you. With one flight of a drone with multispectral imaging, you would be able to detect the earliest form of threats in terms of pest and disease, dieback, or any problem that your field would have, because the drone would be able to see spectrums that you cannot see, which will indicate different stress levels of the plant. So as we see here in one of the pictures there, we have a field. And that green, yellow, red you see there would basically be vegetative index. So that would be plant health. And through the eyes of the drone, you would be able to understand this index to look at areas that are potentially affected by pest and disease, nutrition problems. And that would also help, when we talk about precision, is not only that you need to go in and now apply a pesticide to the whole field, because then you can narrow down the problems and deal with it exactly where it is. That would stop the use of indiscriminate spraying. Is better for our environment, our soil, and it really saves a lot of money in terms of just overall expenses on the farm. Like I said, accurate spraying of pesticides and fertilizers. So we have drones that take this imagery there, because in the scheme of the digital world, there's what we call IoT, so the Internet of Things. So that is what enables smart devices. It's basically they have sensors and they send messages through the internet to one another, communicating without our interference. So what we would see is the drone would fly over a field. It would capture this data with the sensors. When we analyze that, the drones now go so far as to sending that message to another drone that would be programmed, which would be a sprayer drone, indicating that these spots on the field would need some intervention in terms of either pesticide application or fertilizer application. And all of that can be done, set up on a fully automated system so that the farmer doesn't have to really interact or do too much with the system. It will be programmed by itself, learning the field, understanding the areas of vulnerability, and prescribing the solution without the intervention of the farmer. We all see that labor seems to be an issue in the sector of agriculture, so mechanization is one of the things that we have to push for if we want our sector to thrive. We see other things like irrigation management. So, like I said, sensors. You can couple your drones now with sensors that would be in the field. Like I said, IoT. So we have irrigation sensors that could be attached to the field. So when you fly up the drone, you see that imagery. It will validate that that is a pest problem or irrigation problem by using data also from those sensors. So if the sensor reads that the moisture is all right, then you can go in and now look at it to see if it's a pest problem in that hotspot. In terms of the irrigation, we use them for spraying. Drones can identify water sources, also help you understand the flow of water on your land, because most of us see the land also with our bare eyes, but in a moment we will talk about topography and the elevation and understanding how the slope and shape of your land affects your farming enterprise. We see advancement in things like drone pollination, so using them to pollinate orchards. If you have avocados, you have mangoes, you fly over and you release the pollen and they will pollinate the trees for you. You can also estimate your yield using these drones. Something like Irish potato. Drones have the capability that if farmers harvest a plot of Irish potato, even before they carry it back to the shed, right there on the field, they could just do a flyover, and the drone would be able to assess that pile of potatoes based on volume and tell the farmers how much yield he would have there as an estimate. Like I say, resource assessment and resource allocation. So the drones help us identify the resources that we have within close proximity that we might not be aware of, to also help us get a better understanding of our resources within the farm. So for pest and disease control, next please. We see that we have the multispectral imaging, which would detect the problems with the pest and disease. The drones would be able to help you assess crop damage, the scale of your damage. Apply pesticides. We have drones like the Agras, which is used to apply pesticides to farms overseas already. Track infection progress by, once again, the vegetative index, so you can literally track the spread of pest and disease on your field, and establish boundaries for minimizing spread by using the overlay of your farm to effectively plan and put IPM strategies in place. A problem that we have here in agriculture, is black sigatoka. We all know that banana was a very profitable crop for us. Banana contributed a lot to our GDP in the past. We have been growing bananas since then. However, black sigatoka has been a real setback for us. What we have been doing recently at the ministry is that we have been using the drones to to monitor our acreage in terms of banana plant health. But recently, with the help of some researchers from Italy, we were taking a closer look at black sigatoka. So like I was talking about, under the lens of the multispectral imaging. So what we hope to do is really do ground sampling of the leaves, the infected leaves, for black sigatoka. And we will then use AI to understand how the disease progresses. And what that will do is that will create a software for the drones that would be able to identify the stages of black sigatoka in the air. So when it do a flyby, it would literally fly over a field, detect which plants are stage 3 and above, because we know that is when the spores start to be a problem. And then it would be able now to not only detect that, but identify that these are the plants that would need the pesticide. That would save us a lot of money on spraying. It would help us with farmers who have acreages close to housing, because we know, depending on where the farms are located, we cannot just go in and spray for black sigatoka. But if we do it more precise, more careful, more calculated, then we're able to get into more places by spending less and using less effort. So I think that is one of the things that we can already see in agriculture that the drone would help us with, and that's black sigatoka disease. When we look at, next please. Yeah, so sustainable land management, sustainable land and water management. Land and water is the two most important things besides sunlight for agriculture. Without that, there would be no growing of crops. What the drone has done for me as an extension officer is it has really made me understand the land that we cultivate upon. Flying drones in Dominica is not an easy task. Based on our terrain, our topography, we know that nothing in Dominica is not an easy task because of that. Therefore, us understanding our lands and utilizing them to the best of our ability is something detrimental for us, as we do not have a lot of land space. We are home to a lot of mountains, hillsides, so therefore understanding our slopes and our contours is important. When we talk about agriculture, we know that we want to drive production, but because of our topography, we also have to be very careful with the way that we open land, with the way that we cultivate our land, so that it do not become risk and hazards for us later on in the future. A big part of that is understanding our topography, our contours, even our elevation profiles. So basically, a farmer would have a land, and I would go to him, I would tell him his slope is of X degree percentage, and he needs to put contours of so and so feet. And for me, I would understand fully what it is that I'm saying. But for the farmers, most time, they would not grasp the concept. And therefore, the seriousness that we should take in terms of sustainable land management, in terms of agriculture, we weren't getting it because the farmers didn't have a clear picture. With the drone, I can now fly a farmer's land, take that imagery, overlay it with different data sets like contours, rainfall, landslide data, and give the farmer now a clear picture of his land. We also have elevation profiles which strip the imagery of everything and just leaves a modeling of the bare earth. So where a farmer might imagine on his land to be flat, he might be having problems and wondering, boy, why is my crop dying in that particular area? But it's just because that you have a gully in that area and you have water logging, but you never really realize that because to the naked eye, the land is flat. So the drone helps us understand not only what is on the ground in terms of count, but understanding our land itself. And I think from that, it will help us develop better policies, put better plans in place. Like I said, so land use planning, even in agriculture, we have to understand that every crop is not suitable for every place. So we have crops that prefer low-lying areas, we have crops that prefer higher elevation, we have crops that prefer dry areas, we have crops that prefer areas with higher rainfall. Using the drones, we can better understand which portion of land is better suitable for what crop, saving farmers a lot of expense in the long run, because you do not want to be establishing a crop that is only going to fail because of your natural environment. I think it would be good. The first thing we do as extension officers is to help farmers understand their land. what it is that you're working with. And I think over the years, the best way that I could have done that as an extension officer is to use a drone and give them a visual representation. As we can see here, we have different overlays. So the first picture would be a land use map. That would be our land use map of Dominica, showing us where would be our forest areas, agricultural zone, and where would be settlements that can be found on the physical planning site. I can now take a farmer's map of his farm and overlay it with that information and show him, well, okay, if you want to purchase this land or if you want to open this land, you might need to take these practices into account because you will be close to a house in here. You might be close to a forest zone, so you might need to practice certain sustainable practices to be a buffer to the forest. I can make him understand his contours, his slope, and therefore, when the farmer is designing his farm, he starts with a better understanding and moves with a more sustainable approach. I think for sustainability, you have to have a clear picture of where you are, and that will help you to get to where you need to be. If you start with the wrong picture, then I think you're going to end up with the wrong idea later on. So plenty farmers, what they do is that they rush into production without understanding their land. And I think we have to really understand our land so that we can thrive in terms of production, because Dominica has a place for everything, and I think the drones will help us identify those places. So the next point would be disaster risk mitigation. So at first, the drones were just to collect data, understanding the farms. But through understanding the land, I also understand that we are an island with a lot of risk and hazards. Dominica is a beautiful place, but it's a place that we should really take time to understand, because our terrain is really not easy. In terms of hurricanes, volcanoes, we have floods, we have landslides. When you look at the amount of risk associated with such a tiny portion of land, it lets you understand that you really should be aware of what's going on with that land. So over time, disaster risk has become sort of like a passion for me, and I have coupled that with the drone imagery to get a better understanding as to how things affect us in terms of climate change, disaster, how we can safeguard against even man-made risk ourselves through not understanding our land and our topography. So what we do is that the drone, really and truly, it still serves its first purpose. It's a camera. So we take that imagery and it's basically telling a story now. So what we do is we can take that imagery and we overlay it with different data sets. And as we overlay it with those different data sets, then we realize that that imagery begins to tell a story. And from that story, we get to understand different things. We can make policies and keep ourselves safe. So hazard modeling is really understanding your land, understanding the hazards associated with that, and making a model that would give an accurate depiction as to where you are in the red in terms of risk and risk mitigation. Risk mapping, resource mapping is basically the same. When we use the drone, what we do is that we can effectively plan. So routes, we all know that landslides are a problem in Dominica. We know flooding is a problem in Dominica. We know storm surge is a problem in Dominica. We have the data in terms of the flood data. We have the data in terms of the storm surge. But like I told you, if I just showed you that map right there, you would not understand the risk of Roseau in terms of flood. You will not get the picture. However, if you look to the right of the map of Dominica, the top right, that now would be the city of Roseau, coupled with additional data, like the flood data, The names that we see in there would be government infrastructure. So most of our important infrastructure for the government that would be located within the city of Roseau. Overlaying these things would paint a picture and make you understand, one, that we live in a lot of hazards. So like I say, Roseau, just by flying the city of Roseau, taking the photos from that, stitching it together, coming up with a mosaic map, laying that as a base, and then overlaying the population data, building data, flood data, landslide data, we can see that a significant amount of the city of Roseau actually falls within the floodplains. Overlaying that now with rainfall data and elevation data, we can see the reason for that is because Roseau is really a low-lying city below sea level, the same as Portsmouth. So what we'll find is that most of these areas, anyhow, we get significant surge, we get high rainfall, the river floods, then we see that already there would be a lot of risk associated with the city of Roseau. What does that tell us? That tells us now that, one, we have the clear picture. So what it is that, what are we going to do now with the picture? Because remember, a picture tells 1,000 words, but we have to determine what it is that we're going to do. So the same way that we identify this risk, a farmer will be able to identify his risk as well and know whether I need grass barriers, whether I need storm drains, whether I need terraces done, whether I need to put a wall by that river and backfill it so that my land will not be lost. And I think, once again, the drone will give us a picture so that we can help to mitigate this risk. What I have here, lastly, is just a video of better explaining the overlays. So I think if you just click next, it will begin to play. Yeah, so that is just a shot. As we can see, satellite imagery, you cannot really determine nothing much from that. I will add the overlays in terms of, so when we add the drone imagery, you can already see. And that would enable us to zoom in and demarcate which building is what, the type of roof. And all these things are important after disaster as well, in terms of damage assessment. So we see here the city, that would be the drone imagery, the high-def imagery. Then we begin to overlay that with our hazard or flood data. So that would be elevation. The darker parts, of course, being the lower elevation, and the lighter or red parts being the highest elevation. So as we can see, Roseau is in some of the lowest parts, even below sea level itself, on the coast there. And then we can begin to watch these different data sets and start to correlate, okay, well, elevation affects flood, and slope affects flash floods, and low elevation and close proximity to the base coastal surge. So we start to get a clearer picture as to the risk and hazards. Yeah. So in a while so that is the flood data, as you can see. And that would be data for the entire island. So Roseau was just an example, but I would be able to go to a farmer's farm and do the same thing and make him understand whether he is in the risk of flood or not. So it would be interesting to take drone imagery from somewhere like the Stretch Cassibros, which is prone to flooding, and analyze that as well. So that would be our data on the flood map, and then in a while it will show coastal surge, the same, with the red, of course, being the stronger surge areas, and the white being low areas. And this map, the flood map, is actually just like a PDF. What I did was just digitize it, so you can actually take documents, scan them, even a farmer's land paper, even your land paper, any PDF document. You can scan it, digitize it, and overlay the drone imagery. So it's just mixing different data sets. As you can see the flood map there, so that would be the coastal surge. So most of our buildings on the bayfront side there is at risk for coastal surge. So if we know the place historically, I think we kind of understand why these things happen. You know, every time it rains, we see Roseau, every time there's a hurricane. But using these data sets, we get a better understanding as to why these things happen. And once we understand why these things happen, then we can start to move in the positive direction to mitigate against them. So that is just my piece on how drones can help us in agriculture. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ishmael. That was a very comprehensive presentation on drones, you know, and very, very comprehensive. Moving forward, ladies and gentlemen, we have next here on the program to give his presentation, Mr. Jeffrey Bruni. Let's welcome him. Let's make him feel welcome.
Good morning once again. What I want to present is the subject of smart agriculture. A few months ago, November last year, I was part of a delegation that went to South Korea to study their smart agriculture system and what can we take from that to implement here in Dominica. So the question is, what is smart agriculture, smart farming? A lot of people, people think of different things when they hear smart agriculture. But basically, smart agriculture is the use of technologies and innovation to improve agriculture. It is, I don't want to go into all the technicalities, but it is that simple. Using technology, like the drones that Macaulay mentioned, and innovation to improve agriculture. So I want to present what I call the Korean model, and then I will talk about what I think is a model for us. So the Korean model is laced with high technology. It's very expensive. It's cutting edge. It's futuristic but today. And I personally do not think we are ready for that, but I think we can head in that direction. There are some disadvantages with that model. It's very expensive. There's huge capital cost, initial capital cost, to have a smart farm using the Korean model. Big data analytics. We do not yet have the infrastructure to utilize the data that we need to use for the Korean model. A lot of drone technologies use there, a lot of robotics. So, for example, a farmer has an acre of greenhouses and he goes to bed, he wakes up in the morning, and his robots harvested all his tomatoes, ready for the market. Now, when I say the robots harvested, they're not like we, with our eyes, we can say that tomato look good, but the robot knows chemically this tomato is good and ready. So I'm talking about that kind of a technology. I'm talking about that we visited one farm that was a hectare of strawberries. That's 2.5 acres on the greenhouse, and all being harvested by robots. Now, again, that is a direction that's the direction, so we can look at that as into the future, but that is where we're going. All right, so the use of artificial intelligence, IoT, is very, very intense. We visited one particular farm, a 14-story farm, 14-story building, all strawberries, and hardly anybody in there. So that kind of a thing. So when you have that kind of setup, of course, you have a significant reduction in labor. And as you know, not just here in Dominica, but around the world, one of the biggest problems we have in agriculture is labor. Labor, huge, huge problem. So the Koreans came, after the Korean War, Korea was in a destitute state. They lost a lot of men, so labor was a huge problem. And also with typhoons and all that, so they had a climate problem, and they're thinking, how are we going to feed our people? We don't have men to work the land, number one. And, with all the problems that they had with typhoons and all that, and they looked at what the Japanese did next door, and they figure, this is going to solve a problem. The Japanese already had smart agriculture going, but what the Koreans did, they upped the game by just a ton of technology. And that is what gives us what I call the Korean model today. Now, I think we can look at what the Koreans do and many other countries, what they do, and have the Dominican version of it. Which I would call more like an introduction approach, an introduction to smart agriculture. So a more cost-effective approach. Because obviously a farmer cannot afford to build a 14-story building with robots harvesting for him and all of that. Like, 8 Bank is not gonna give a loan for that. All right, so we're not there. But the approach I think that is suitable for us in Dominica is one where, first of all, we move away, and I'm talking more specifically about vegetable production. That is my area of passion and expertise. So a lot of what I'm going to mention here, I'm talking about vegetable production more specifically. So I think a better approach, a more suitable approach for us here in Dominica is, number one, moving away from the soil. So soilless agriculture. And why soilless agriculture? Well, I believe the number is 96% of all plant disease is soil-based. So right away, you eliminate a huge chunk of plant disease just by moving to soilless. And we have mediums here in Dominica, coconut husk. So cocoa coir, pumice. We have mediums here that are affordable, even free, to a large extent, that we can use. So we can have an approach that is affordable and makes sense for us. Precision irrigation, precision fertigation. Precision technology is very affordable, very cheap. I remember about maybe 18 to 20 years ago, I looked at a fertigator when I started thinking of, going that direction, and the fertigator was like 13,000 to 15,000 US. Today I can get a cutting edge fertigator for like 1,003, 1,002, cutting edge with all the latest features. So technology in agriculture is not as expensive as it was a long time ago. So there are very affordable features we can use to implement smart agriculture. So when I talk about precision irrigation and precision fertigation, so for example, we generally, in our agricultural culture here in Dominica, generally we have two types of fertilizer, above ground and underground. End of story, right? So whether it's, so plantain and mango get the same above ground fertilizer. Coconut and banana get the same. But the needs are different. With precision fertigation, you give the tomato exactly what it needs. You give the banana exactly what it needs, which is a different, the different cocktail for lettuce. So everything gets its exact nutrition. A baby cannot get the same food as the grandma, right? Even if they're both female, right? So all above ground cannot get the same. It has to be a different nutrition for different crops. So when you're talking about precision fertigation, you're talking about giving the plant precisely what it needs. And again, I'm talking about a very inexpensive technology. We can also look at things like automatic temperature control. So in a greenhouse, some of the problems we have in a greenhouse, if the greenhouse is too hot, you're going to have problems with pollination. There are very cost-effective ways to do automatic temperature control and even, in some cases, passive temperature control. Again, we're looking at very cost-effective ways of doing that. Another key feature that I am looking at for the Dominican model is aggressive pest control. One of the problems that Dominican agriculture has is the extensive use of pesticides and weedicides and the effect it's having on our health as a country. We are, Dominica, Guadeloupe, Martinique have among the highest rates of prostate cancer in the world. Not in the Caribbean, in the world. So we have to address the use of pesticides and weedicides. And one of the things that smart agriculture will help us to do is to reduce, significantly reduce, and to a large extent even eliminate the use of weedicide and pesticide. Because if you're in a controlled environment, you don't have weeds. If you're in a controlled environment, you can control pests to the point where you do not have them. When we were in Korea, it was several days later, I'm trying to get one question answered. What do they do for pest control? Because I don't see, they don't use pesticides for the most part. And I'm trying to get them to answer, but how do you do your pest control? And I found out a few days later that they pretty much don't use pesticide for the most part because of stringent, aggressive pest control protocols that they have. So they do not have to use pesticides. Right? So that's I think, a more cost-effective way that we can implement smart agriculture in Dominica. Something that you can go to the bank and the loan officer will say, well, that makes sense, because at the end of the day, it is a very, like I said, very high capital initiative. We can skip the next slide and key benefits. We can skip that one. Oh, no, excuse me, let's go back a little. Yeah, all right. So the use of pesticide and weedicide is close to my heart. When I read about what's going on with our neighbors, Guadeloupe and Martinique, and here in Dominica, I remember, 2 decades ago, we didn't really have all those cases of cancer, prostate cancer, as we have today. And a lot of that is because of the amount of pesticides that we use, not just the farmers getting sick, but the people that we serve, the customers, they get sick from the amount of pesticides that we use. So I think one of the key benefits to going smart is that you do not have to use that amount of pesticide. And you can even completely eliminate the use of pesticides like the Koreans do. and of course other harmful chemicals. Another key benefit is you have a reliable and consistent product. So today, the average farmer during CAWEM, you just keep hearing, you look at the supermarket shelf during CAWEM, and it's atrocious because a lot of the things that we have on the shelf is imported because you cannot get lettuce, you cannot get this, you cannot get that. And the farmer will tell you, well, it's CAWEM, or we had a bad CAWEM. Or when you move in the direction of smart agriculture, you do not have the issue of CAWEM. So you can be consistent and you can have a reliable consistent product. Also, it is very important to have predictability in production for the supermarket. For us to reduce the importation, the high importation we have in agriculture now, the supermarket has to have the confidence that we can supply, we the farmer can supply them CAWEM or not, rainy season or not. So whether June, July, August, September, it doesn't matter. We can be consistent and reliable. Because the supermarket owner is not going to say, well, I'm not importing, lettuce because I want to be a patriot. No. He's going to have lettuce in his supermarket. So if he doesn't have the confidence that the farmer is going to give to him, he's going to have to import it. So that's one of the things that, that moving into smart agriculture is going to bring our way. No, labor reduction, significant reduction in labor. Not just that you don't, when you go smart, you're not really, so irrigation is for the most part automated, irrigation. Weed control is non-existent, like there's no weeds in a smart system. So imagine a situation where you don't have to weed, you don't have to water. These are two of the most labor-intensive things in agriculture. So talk to any farmer and tell him of a scenario where you don't have to weed, you don't have to water. Is they make. So I think with the problem that we have, the labor shortage that we have, and every farmer knows that, and even non-farmers know that we have a serious labor shortage in Dominica. Going smart is going to help that. And not just Dominica and the region, but the world. So definitely going smart is going to help that. And the last key benefit here is you have a much healthier product because of the fact that you don't have to use that much chemicals. You don't have to use weedicides and pesticides and all of those. Then you have a much healthier product. Now, the fact that the farmer doesn't have to deal with those harmful chemicals, the farmer is a healthier farmer. So you have a healthier nation in general, not just the product that you're consuming, but the farmer that uses those products. And I think that is very, very important. Challenges. Smart agriculture definitely has its challenges. I think one of the biggest challenges is the high startup cost. Because you're going to set up an infrastructure that is very expensive, not just greenhouses, but everything in the greenhouse. And especially if you go in, the more automation you bring in, of course, the higher the cost. So that is one of the big challenges. Ingrained cultural practices, we have our ways. It's difficult to get farmers to change the way they do things. They've always been doing it that way. Their father did it, their grandfather did it, and now you're telling them that don't plant in soil. That had, right? So that's one of the major challenges that we have, and a lack of awareness as to. I remember, as a child in school, you learn that plants grow in soil. End of story. So to tell a farmer now that he can plant without soil, like, what are you talking about? Right? So that is a challenge to get us to think differently. Another challenge, the technical complexity and the lack of services to support that. We're not there yet. No, we're heading in that direction. But these are some of the challenges that we have. And you know, I see that Ministry of Agriculture is getting a lot of support now. I see a lot of Cubans are here. I saw, well, the Koreans came here. Actually, the Koreans made themselves available to help us navigate the movement towards smart agriculture. So I think there is support available to go that direction, but it's not here as yet. Our challenges are not without solutions. So yes, the challenges are great, but we have solutions. And we have solutions that are practical. We have solutions that have been tested around the world. So we're not trying a thing. When the Koreans started this decades ago, they had those same challenges. So we're not reinventing the wheel. We look at countries that have gone before us, and although the Koreans have done this for decades, but if you look at Kenya, Kenya started their smart agriculture initiative some 15 years ago, and everybody has to go through the same challenges. If you look at them today, you know, it's like, where were those challenges that we thought that we couldn't overcome, you know? So I think we can overcome those challenges. One of the key solutions, I believe, to overcome those challenges is something that's called an incubator, a smart farming incubator. Pretty much what it is a facility that facilitates the young farmer, the entrepreneur, that wants to go into smart greenhouse, but he doesn't have the capital, and the bank doesn't want to give him the loan because it's too risky, right? So you set up an incubator, he starts his business in the incubator, the facilities there and everything, and he gets all the technical support, he gets everything that he needs in the incubator. 2-3 years later, he has a business that's operational. He has his markets, he has selected his varieties, he has a relationship with his customers, he has a running business. He can go to the bank and say, here are my documents, this is where I am, this is how much money I make a month. And then you have the rest of the incubator supporting him. The support is not just the facility and technical support, but also business support. So when he goes to a bank, he doesn't go alone. And a bank can see, well, this is a lot less risky because the guy is already he's already in the business. Now he just wants to get out of the incubator and go on his own. So that is one of the solutions I think that can work for us here in Dominica, and it's very easy to do, and there is funding available for that. Having smart agriculture in our curriculum is another, I think, great solution. Not just at the college level, not just at the state college, but in our high schools and primary schools. That's where it starts. Not when the farmer is already in the field, ingrained in his ways, that we're trying to introduce smart agriculture to him. He learned that in school already, here in primary school. That's a good way to go. Another solution, I think there are a lot of international organizations out there that have been talking to us and available to hold our hand to go in the direction of smart agriculture. The World Bank, FAO, the Koreans have been there, ready and willing. You have this organization, Common Earth. We've had that conversation. They are willing and ready to even fund an incubator in Dominica. So the support is there. And we can do this together. It's a all hands on deck effort. Yes, the government has its role to play. The private sector has its role to play. The business community has its role to play. The supermarkets and the hotels have their role to play. And I believe together we can go that direction and change Dominica's agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bruni, for your insight on smart agriculture. We're moving nicely, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to welcome our next speaker here, Mr. Derek Theophile. Let's make him feel welcome.
Good morning again. Yep. Yes. All right, so I will begin by asking how many people in the room here has heard of Cobalt Toolbox? Just put your hand up if you heard of Cobalt Toolbox before. All right. Next question, how many people in the room here have heard of R before? Okay. All right, so a little bit learned today. I'm happy for that. I always like to teach these things, and these are really my passion, you know. All right, so let's move to the next slide, please. All right, so why do digital tools matter? And I mentioned Cobalt Toolbox and R. This is my focus, but in general, we have the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy, which I'm a part of. We're responsible for food production here in Dominica, and also one of the key agencies who are responsible for food security. Right? Quality information is required for us to make decisions. As you all know, you need information for you to make good decisions. Otherwise, you have lots of waste, you make the wrong decisions, and things don't really go as you want. Right? However, we have issues, just like many of our colleagues in our small island developing states, with data. We have lots of data gaps. We lack accurate data, or the data is just not timely. It takes a lot of time to get the results that you want so you can make a decision when you're trying to work within an evidence-based decision-making framework. And that's because a lot of our systems have been tied to a traditional paper-based data collection system. And that causes timeliness, you know, because that's my data collector there from Force Asia, from way back in the day. He would write down the fisherman's catches on a book, right? Then transfer that to his official Fisheries Division data collection book. Then at the end of the month, bring that to the Fisheries Division, where somebody would sit at the computer and manually type that into the database that I created. Right? That was the workflow. Okay? You can imagine the time it takes for us to get any sort of idea as to what happened in that scenario there. Right? And that is what happens also in agriculture. The extension officers go on the field, they have their little book, their diary or whatever. Davis is a man that I see do that plenty times already, right? You write down, all right, you have 2 acres of banana, you have 1 acre of lettuce, you have whatever you have a little crop there, you have a little pest there, you have a little pesticide, you apply this fertilizer. When you come back, you give that to the secretary put that in a kind of a spreadsheet, and the thing is, all regions, secretaries have a different style of spreadsheet, different structure, different everything. No, that spreadsheet have to go back to the head of extension, who then, that secretary for that head of extension have to compile that into one unified spreadsheet, who then have to send that to the director of agriculture, who then might have to send that up to the PSNA minister, right? So you can imagine the workflow of that and how tedious and how challenging that was. And that was actually what I found when I joined the Emergency Agricultural Livelihoods Climate Resilience Program back in 2019, when I did a little moonlighting from my fisheries portfolio. Right, so I worked at that time with Mr. Adisa Trotter. Many of you might know him. He's a very good man, and he did a lot of heavy work in agriculture. And I helped him so that we could collaboratively build a system for agriculture and agriculture data since that time. And that's what we've been using now, and we'll talk a bit about that. So tools such as Cobalt Toolbox and R was what was used to offer that scalable and timely solution towards our data challenges that we had. Right? Next slide, please. So what is Cobalt Toolbox? Well, Cobalt Toolbox is free, open source solution, right? It allows for offline data collection, so you don't need to be connected to the internet full time. We know that some farms are in some holes, some blackout areas where you can't get data, you can't get anything, right? So it works that way. So if you're in a storm, whatever, digital and flow shut down, you lose everything, you can still capture your data, and then when you have internet again, you can submit your data to your stuff, right? It's mobile ready. It's device agnostic. That means it works on both Android And iOS or Windows, if you have that still, whatever you're rocking, it will work with you, right? Because there's a mobile app for Android, and then for all other devices, you can use a browser, modern browser, and it will pretty much work, right? Because it stores the data within the browser, and then when you have internet access, you can submit automatically. And it also has controls for data loss and other things like that in there. So it supports crop and fisheries data collection and much, much more. It's used worldwide in challenging situations, such as humanitarian crises and so forth. Whenever there's some situation going on, various UN agencies use Kobo Toolbox very heavily for their data collection on the ground in the situation. So like in the situation with the wars around the world, you would have people using Kobo Toolbox on their devices. So right now I can use my phone, I can use my laptop if I want, I can use whatever device I have available and handy to capture data right now on the field, and then submit that when I have connection again. Next slide, please. So how do you do that? How do you build that? Right? So there's the basic workflow. You have your traditional paper forms, right? You use the Kobo Toolbox tools, things such as the XLS forms and so on, right? And you digitize your paper form into something electronic, right? After that, you use a tool. Enquito is the tool that is used for the browsers, so it saves all the work within your browser. Or you can use the ODK Collect or Kobo Collect, which has the Android tools at the bottom. And then from that, you can use that on your device to collect your data anywhere and everywhere as you see fit. So it's very, very simple in terms of practice, and it's very easy to develop your forms. Next slide, please. So how does it work in practice? And of course, as I mentioned, we have been doing that. I'll give an agriculture example. So we have the National Farmer and Farm Holding Registry, where we go to the farmers, collect the demographics, we georeference the farm, so we know where the farms are located, latitude and longitude, the status of the farmer, the farms, what they have there. We have the farm enterprise monitoring, where we look at production, crops, livestock, fertilizer, pesticide application, environmental concerns, whatever support the farmers requested, we capture all of that and then some. There's like over 300 or so plus questions that are within a typical questionnaire. But the way it works is that the form is smart. So if you want to ask the farmer this trajectory of questions, then it only allows for these questions to show. So you basically would be asking, the farmer would ask you, where do you want to go next with regards to your interview process with the farmer? Right? And then from there, it'll open up the questions that are relevant to what you're doing at the time. So if you come only to register the farmer, it'll only show registration questions. If you come to monitor the crops and livestock, it'll only show you questions for monitoring of crops and livestock. So in that way, you don't have to go through the full 300 questions and consider all of that. You stick to your path of what you come here to do. Right? We have also used it for soil surveys, project monitoring, for example, the InCrop project, we do that a lot. And of course, it allows for near real-time policy support because as soon as data is sent, it comes back to the Agriculture Ministry data unit right away, right? And they can have that tonight and can prepare something for you, right? As the need comes in, right? So it allows for that level of flexibility and speed of data collection from the field. Next slide, please. In terms of a fisheries example, yes, so we have the National Fisher and Fishing Vessel Registry. This one is a bit more developed than the agriculture one, but we capture lots of demographics, vessel details, and the crew, the status of the fishermen, and the fisher folk, I should say, and also their vessels. We capture production in terms of catch and effort monitoring for fish landings by catch, if they catch something that they did not intend to catch, which is very important when you're talking about resource conservation. We talk about economics, cost of operations, price of fish, we capture that. Activity, what sort of gear was used to catch that fish. The trip duration, if they take 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, where did they go to catch the fish. Biological data is also important, the length of the fish versus the weight of the fish. We're talking about that a bit tomorrow, if you're interested in learning more about some of those things at the Fisheries Division. Other use cases, monitoring and evaluation of fisheries-related and development projects. So the ILCROP project, again, right now we're doing some development work at various landing sites around the island. So extension officers from the Fisheries Division go to the field, go with their device, take a picture of what the progress is, write down and say, all right, this is what is happening, and then submit the record. Within 5 minutes, you have already documented the progress of the work on the field that you're monitoring, right? Also, damage and loss assessment. Similarly, when there's a storm surge, or some other event that affects our fisher folk, our extension officers go on the field, they capture footage, they capture video, pictures, and then they get the information from the fishers,
and other things, and they can submit that back to the office without having to have any paperwork that can get lost or destroyed. Because we at Fisheries Division really suffered a lot of loss from Hurricane Maria when the entire building was destroyed then. So right now everything is pretty much strongly focused on digital for our continued serving of our data. Yes, and that also allows for near real-time policy support for fisher folk. All right, so next slide, please. Yes, in terms of R is a bit more difficult, and for some people's cases, a bit more challenging. If you've ever heard of SPSS, right, it's a supercharged SPSS, and the best part of it is that it is free, 100% free. It just has a very steep learning curve, but you can get there, I think, if you try and put your mind to it, right? So it's a statistical programming language, so it allows for programming in order to do the work you need to do. So you need to actually code in what you need to do, and then you press run, and it runs and it delivers whatever outputs that you want. It supports reproducible scientific work, so that basically what it allows is that I can share my code, right, with Danny, for example, and he can put it into R, give him the data, and if he run the code, he will get the same result that I got. Right? And we as scientists use that a lot within our community at Fisheries. It allows for, and because of that, it allows for a very structured approach to data. So it follows tidy data principles, which means that every column in a spreadsheet, for example, is a variable, and you don't mix and match things between them, and every row in a spreadsheet is an observation, right? And you have to be very strict with that, because data has certain rules that follows in order for it to get the results that you want, all right? And then that allows for automation as well. Now with R, you can do a lot of fancy ways of cleaning and analyzing your data, visualizing your data in charts, maps, graphs, and other things. I will show you some of that in a bit. And then allows you to reveal trends and patterns from which you can make informed decisions. And also it allows you for generating written reports. So these two reports that you're seeing here on the side, these were generated strictly with R. We just put the data in there, we put the code, and we press the run button, and it outputs a PDF document with your table of contents, with your text, inline changes to values, and then you have graphs, maps, and other charts, tables, and so forth within a pretty whatever page document that you want to do, right? And that is very useful. So myself and Adisa, for a long time, have been preparing this sort of thing and sending that to all colleagues at the ministry so they have an idea as to what's going on within the sector. Next slide, please. All right, so this one is just some graphs. So this is a graph showing, I think, some work with regards to species. So you can make this sort of graph. This other one is with regards to school kids in Belize. This one is with regards to some coastal monitoring with regards to slope in Barbados. This one is with regard to fisheries and catch per unit effort. And then this one is a time series for rainfall data. Right? So you can do some fancy, nice, beautiful looking graphs and plots with R. Next slide, please. And a few more. Yes, and this is a map that was created in R showing the resilience index of a community in Dominica. I think this one is Petit Savan. Next. This one is for fisheries. So this one shows where some fishermen caught fish within Dominica's waters. So we have an idea as to where fishermen go. I think it's Fort Seja, Portsmouth, and Marigot. And you can see that some of the areas where the fishermen go when they tell us that they go and they catch whatever fish. So that helps in terms of mapping activity, right? One more. In terms of agriculture, this one maps the farmers. So through our work with the Ministry of Agriculture and the Agriculture Division, we've mapped over hundreds of farms as to what they do and where they are situated. So we actually know where we have certain farms. So we have farms categorized there by crops and aquaculture, crops alone, livestock alone, or whatever mix, right? This one also is about nutrition in a few schools in Belize for a survey that I supported some time back. And I think there might be one more. No, there's no more. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so how do you do all of these things, right? So you have your data collectors on the field, the extension officers, what will you, right? When you press submit, it goes into your Kobo Toolbox repository. So right now, the government of Dominica, through the support of the ICT unit, already has a Kobo Toolbox server, in Dominica set up, right? So a lot of our data that's collected goes directly into that server. It's captured by the government and in charge of the government, so we have our data sovereignty, right? From there we pull that using R script. So we have an R script that says pull this data from this server and then do the additional work, cleaning, the analysis and other things. And then of course outputs for me using R Markdown, a nice fancy report that I can then just send to the minister. Right? So that's pretty much the workflow. And of course it allows for automation because you don't have to do much. You just have, once you have your code, you can rerun it every time and it will update the report as the new data comes in to update it. Next slide, please. So in terms of training, I have done countless trainings both locally and regionally. And the bottom left here is some training that was done for public officers at the documentation center. Last year, I think we had 2 or 3 cohorts who learned how to develop forms in Kobo Toolbox, the basics, and how to set up their own surveys, the basics of how to establish a survey, build a survey, and so on. And it's all in the service of building data literacy for the public sector, because it's something that really, we observe that is really lacking, and we need people to understand data and to understand that data is not something that you should fear. You should actually embrace it, and here's how. Here are tools that can actually make you capture data and help you to manage it as well, right? So it builds skill, capacity and data ownership. It creates sustainable digital ecosystem for our information within the public service sphere, public administration. And then on the right, that was a regional training where I was teaching some colleagues from the region, my fisheries colleagues, of course, some R scripts for their stock assessment purposes, and just running through what we do in Dominica in terms of doing some of our assessments. So just sharing some code with them. So that is basically how R looks. You can see the back screen. It's kind of intimidating if you haven't done any coding, but it is actually very intuitive and very, very useful. Next slide, please. All right, so looking ahead, we know now, I guess, I hope you understand and see it now, that Kobo Toolbox and R are both very powerful and accessible tools. I'll reiterate that they are free. You can go to kobotoolbox.org right now and make an account, and you can start capturing data today. Right? It doesn't take very long, and there are lots of tutorials online to learn, or if you want, we can have a chat about that as well. Right? R is a bit more involved, but there are quick and easy ways to get started with that as well. Of course, you can integrate all of these things with your GIS, your drone data, your climate models, your AI. I think that's number 2. Is that number 2? Number 4? Right. And everything else. I mean, it's data. Once it's only dependent on your imagination, right? So if you're thinking of it, any data that you capture can be used in some way, shape, or form. Right? You have to just think about, all right, how do we use this data that we have for the common and the public good? All right, enhancing real-time monitoring, that's another thing we have to look at. We're trying to make sure we can streamline the process to ensure we can have data more quickly and readily available, trying to work on dashboards and so forth. Of course, it's a work in progress, and it depends on availability of the experts. So for example, right now, I'm trying to work with my staff at Fisheries and Lisa at Agriculture in terms of streamlining their systems. Right? But of course, I have an entire department to run as well as Chief Fisheries Officer. So it's all about juggling some of these things together. But I do have a passion for data, and it's one of the things I want to make sure that we can accomplish. Of course, all of this is embracing our ground-up digital transformation. It's something that we built ourselves. We own it, right? We own this. It's not somebody that brought it to us. It's not somebody from Europe or America who brought this to us. We take this, we build it, and we own it. We manage to maintain it. And that is where you feel this sense of pride that, all right, we can do this. We don't have to look to somebody else to do it for us. And I hope people understand that and take that forward. We can adopt, we can train, and we can share. And that is the model I try to push every day with these things, right? So build smarter agriculture and fisheries systems that are our own, right? So digital tools in the hand of our local experts, I believe, are the key to sustainable agriculture and fisheries management. And with those few words, I want to say thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Theophile. Thank you. While you were speaking, I went on Google Store and I downloaded Kobo Toolbox right away. So I will be exploring that. Later today. Yes. Kobo. Kobo, sorry, Kobo. All right, moving on, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our next presenter, Mr. Revere. Let's make him feel welcome.
All right, good morning, everybody. How many of you love looking at YouTube videos? I especially love looking at YouTube videos. There's so much information out there. And one of my favorite YouTubers is a British farmer who does cattle, mostly dairy cattle, but he also has, some beef, etc. And I remember a couple of years ago, he added some collars to his cattle. And I found that so intriguing because he had a whole system where he was able to basically look at what's going on with the cattle. He could literally see how long they feed and how long they rest from his computer. And it so happened that one day he was looking at his data and realized that one particular cow was resting more than eating. And instantly he realized there was a problem. And he was able to go check on that cow from his small herd of 150. And he was then able to preemptively deal with the issue and not come and find a dead cow. And that's the usefulness of data. And that's the direction I think we can go here. Not necessarily with some of the more expensive, the Korean models and those things, but there are things that we can do now that can help us be more efficient in our farming, be more proactive in what we do. I have a huge passion for farming, even though I've been in IT for, close to 20 years. But my passion has always been agriculture. And this is why I came up with this solution. So I'm going to talk to you about something I've been working on for a little while. And of course, it's a free solution that will be available for us locally on our farmers as well as regionally. And as we go along, you will see how this will help us in our direction that we're heading in farming. Now, I'm also part of the Livestock Farmers Cooperative. I am a farmer myself. It's one of my joys lately, spending time with my goats. But I realized that to be able to make money early as a young farmer coming into the game when a lot of people have been doing this for a long time, we have to do things differently. So this was really the main reason why I started working on this system. All right, so traditional challenges. Everything we've done so far for many, many years have been, you would see a lot of farmers tying their goats on the side of the road, all over the place, not really large scale, not really well organized. Basically, I've seen people with 50 plus goats that walk their goats for the village every now and then. They have goats that they've had for years that have not really been productive, but they wouldn't really know which goat is productive and which goat is not, because it's really just about feeling, and at a certain point in the year they might pick 2 goats to kill and that kind of thing. And of course that creates a lot of inefficiencies in growth, in really making money, because farming is a business. It's not just a vibe. So in order to really make farming profitable, you really have to increase the efficiency of your inputs, what you put in, how much money you spend on these animals versus what you're getting out. And in the Livestock Cooperative, they've been talking a lot about moving farmers away from just that roadside type of farming to a proper farming structure using a paddock system, using all these different technologies that's available. So you move away from the guesswork. So what we have currently is a lot of guesswork. We have no real-time tracking, no real-time visibility. We don't really know what's going on with individual animals. It takes some time for us to realize when there's a sick animal, because you really only see what's happening with the animal when you can visibly notice it's become lethargic, it's not eating, it's almost ready to die. And that's because we're not really tracking the day-to-day what's happening with each of these animals. It's very labor intensive, and a lot of what we do, a lot of the farmers really don't do any real data collection. And not just data collection. Remember, this is a business. We need accounting. We need to be able to see how much money we're spending and how much money we're getting back, right? So there's poor profitability insights, strictly because we don't really collect the data. And there's a lot of lost opportunities. For example, breeding. The breeding cycles are long. Some farmers only get one breeding per year because they're not sure, when the goats are coming into heat, etc. And things just happen when it happens, rather than being on a more efficient timeline. So these are the kind of things that we're trying to mitigate with a more data-driven system. You can't manage what you can't measure. Traditional methods leave Caribbean farmers managing by intuition rather than information. And these are the things that we're trying to get away from. So this solution offers a more data-driven transformation. We're talking a lot of data that doesn't really take a lot of time to enter. So it's every single data point that we have is going to help us make better decisions going forward. So the more data you enter into the system, the more you can get out of the system. And that goes across any type of system. Now, specifically, this system has a lot of AI involved, and we'll talk about that as we go along, so you can see how I've integrated AI into the systems to help really get the efficiency as pinpoint as we can moving forward. Specifically, I forgot to mention, this system is ruminants. It's based on ruminants, that's basically cows, goats, and sheep, and how we manage those. All right, so we're able to measure, analyze, and improve, and that's really, really important because you may have a whole herd of animals, 50, 60 animals, and each of them really, they grow at different stages, different times. Some grow early, some take more time to grow. The more time it takes to grow, the more feed you have to give the animal before you can, say, butcher that animal and bring it to market. Now, if you can recognize that a certain few animals are developing at a faster rate early enough, then you can say, okay, I'm going to base my herd off of these animals rather than the ones that are growing slower, even though they're of the same breed. And then you take away the ones that grow slower, you butcher them over time, and you concentrate on improving that herd. So over time, your herd gets stronger, it gets, the growth is a lot quicker, harvest is a lot earlier, which means you're spending less money on inputs, and you're getting a lot more out of it. Predictive insights, which drive ROI. ROI is return on investment, and that is really the bottom line. You really want to know how much inputs you have to give in, you have to put into each animal individually for you to get a certain output. I remember that same farmer I spoke about, he put a new parlor in where he milked his cows. And with the collars on, he's able to tell which cow produces how much milk. They just walk through, they put them on, automatically the system recognizes which cow is attached to which milker and registers how much milk that cows give. That happens twice a day. At the end of the day, he can see how much milk each cow produces for that day. And over time, you have charts being plotted based on that. And these are some of the things we will see that we have incorporated in the system. All right, so I call the system CRUMS, Caribbean Ruminant Management. Specifically, I started with goats, and I wanted a way to manage my goats, and I saw the need for more. So it's able to manage cows, goats, and sheep, and actually incorporates very Caribbean-specific data. So what I did is I did a lot of research. There's actually a lot of research online on Caribbean-specific data, and I incorporated this data into the system so it makes decisions based on our weather patterns, based on the breeds that we have locally, based on many other data points. It's, as I said, Caribbean-oriented and uses a lot of modern technology. It's currently cloud-based, but if the government is interested, there's easy ways to move it across to their infrastructure as well. So one of the things I recognize was important is you have to be able to identify individual animals. And this is where our animal registration number comes in. In fact, the system is created in such a way that every farm from every island has specific registration numbers, so you could automatically recognize which island an animal is from, which farm on that island that is from, just by looking at the ID. And each animal itself receives its own registration number that will follow it through its lifetime. Even when you sell that animal, it will still have that registration number associated with it. All right, and we have comprehensive animal records that includes lineage tracking, which is something that came up a lot in our group chats, where if you want to, for example, you're looking for a stud, you're looking for a goat, a good solid male goat to cross with your females. You don't want one, there are some really good looking goats and you think they're pure breed, but by the time you get a few crosses in, you realize the quality of the kids are low. So what we're able to do is to track lineage. For example, if you cross a goat and you register that in the system and you put the kids' data in there as well, you'll be able to see, okay, this particular stud was able to produce this goats that are growing at this rate. And you can actually see the pedigree information and be able to see, this is the parentage, this stud has produced all these great kids, I want to cross from that goat. Now, you as a farmer owning that stud will say, well, normally we have these studs available for $150 per cross, but this is a prime stud, bring up the $300. Now you start making serious money because you can prove now that your goat is going to give you quality kids. All right? And of course, it's data-powered insights. The way I developed this, as I said, it's very Caribbean specific. It's also breed specific within the species. It incorporates a lot of all breeds that are here and crossbreeds. It does automatic breed calculation. If you're doing crossbreeds, it will tell you what percentage of each of the breeds that the goat that your kid that you'll get out of that is going to be. We do projections, herd size projections based on many different criteria. For example, if it's the first time breeder, if it's bred before, how many offspring it made on previous crossings, previous breedings, the age of the animal, the time of year, for example, is a big difference because based on the time of year that animal is making offspring, there's a possibility that it makes more or less. So it uses all those variables to be able to make decisions and even prescribe what size your herd is going to be if you follow specific instructions from the system in breeding your animals. So it is very data-driven. And one of the other important aspects is health. Now, that makes a big difference for us. We have a lot of issues with pests, and being able to recognize when an animal may be affected by some kind of pest like worms. So based on the data that we put in, we can be able to see, okay, maybe this goat is losing weight instead of gaining weight. Something is going on. We can check it and see what's going on. Now, that means you're going to get a reduction in vet visits because now you're proactively working to keep your herd at peak efficiency rather than reactively. And one of the things that we also be able to do is if there's a particular animal that keeps getting sick or not growing at the right level, you pull that out or you call that out of your herd, and then you have a stronger herd that is more disease resistant, that is able to produce at a higher rate for you. All right, and because it's completely online, you have access to it anywhere. One of the features that we're actually incorporating is the online offline feature, where you'll be able to enter all that data, well, some of that data, the important data from the field without any internet, and as soon as you get online, it will automatically sync back in. So we're able to do a lot of these things to help increase the efficiency, as I said, and improve survival rates and even compliance tracking. Because one of the things that I've also incorporated is a health certificate, which basically takes into consideration veterinary visits, vaccines that have been issued. It also does vaccine recommendations. There are certain vaccines that are recommended right across the board for all your animals. There are certain vaccines that you want to issue based on different circumstances. So it takes all those things into consideration and makes recommendations for the farmer. So now you're not guessing what to do. It helps you understand what you should do to keep your animals at peak efficiency and really to make your farm profitable. All right, and we call that proactive management. All right, so smarter breeding optimization is one of the things I spent some time on, targeting specific species, specific breeds, because different breeds have the probability of giving you a certain number of kids. Different breeds operate better in different temperatures. All those things are being taken into consideration when helping you to plan your breedings. One of the things that is sometimes recommended is to synchronize your breeding, for example. So you have more kids or more animals at the same age being born around the same time, makes it easier to manage a larger herd rather than having one or two at different ages, and now you have to be putting them in different groups because they can't be together. So if you can synchronize the breeding, then it gets easier for you to manage overall and becomes less labor intensive. So the system uses AI again to help plan those things. So ahead of time, you can decide this is the best time to breed these animals. And also that would help you reduce the breeding cycles, so that instead of having to do only one breeding a year, you can get 3 in 2 years, and really optimize the number of animals you get out of your out of each cycle. And one of the things I'm really proud of is the digital marketplace. Being in the group chats and seeing the farmers go back and forth about animals, one thing that stood out for me happened last week, where a farmer posted a few kids for sale, and somebody was really up in arms. Why are you selling the animals at this price? Why are they so expensive? I want documentation. You use a system like this, nobody asks questions. The documentation is right there. You can see its pedigree, you can see where it came from, you can see the quality of the animal, and you have access to a health card, which shows, these animals have been well taken care of. You can see that they've been vaccinated, etc. And now you can put a premium price on your animals because they're at that level. So you no longer are open to all these questions because the answers are all in front of you. The system allows or gives access to a nice profile of the animal that gives you some basic information and your pedigree information and those kind of things. There's even a pedigree chart where you could visually see lineage for 2 generations. So these are some of the things that help, simplify the whole process of making animals available. And the marketplace, you make your animal available for breeding, for example, or for sale, and you set your price per pound based on the different reasons you have for selling the animal. If it's a kid, if it's a dairy animal, for example, it may command a different price from a meat animal. So all these things are taken into consideration. And when you set your price, it gives the farmers the ability to even haggle a little bit and go back and forth and decide the final price. And then when everything is confirmed and finalized, it does automatic transfer of the data from the selling farmer to the buying farmer. So you don't have to manually go and enter that information again. It's already in the system, it gets transferred to you, and now you can just continue with your day-to-day. All right, so it's secure, traceable, and allows, smooth flow. It's very user-friendly and allows farmers to be able to enter information very simply and easily. One of the things that I am currently working on, most of it is already implemented. It's being able to do a lot of performance analysis. So we have a very extensive dashboard, which is initially generalized, but you can zoom in and get it species specific. And then when you look at the species specific data with graphs and charts, etc., all that is exportable data to a spreadsheet. You can also do an advanced analysis on your farm to see how one herd might rate against another herd based on what you're doing. So the system gives you, it's robust enough to give you a lot of data points to work with and really give you some deep analysis based on many different areas. So, for example, calving intervals. You'll be able to see what was the last calving interval of a particular cow, and then decide moving forward how you're going to handle that cow. And these things help you to simplify all the different tasks that you do on your farm. Now, we also have the ability to do finance. So one of the things I just implemented actually is being able to calculate feed conversion rates. So based on the cost of the feed, the quantity of the feed that you're applying to individual animals, you could register this on the system, and over time be able to track the weight gain over time versus the feed input, and actually put an actual cost to each animal based on the poundage that you have at different development stages. So again, with that kind of data, the kind of power that you have at your hands to help increase the efficiency on your farm. Some of the things that we're currently working on is break-even analysis and the more business side of the application that would help farmers, with the accounting side, and to be able to see how they're actually making money. All right, and that fits in with our real-world return on investment, and we're able to see how, using the system, we can move from, data retention levels, conception rates, a reduction in breeding cycles, increased profitability based on just having that data available to proactively increase the profitability on your farm. All right. And then it's very Caribbean tailored, as I said. Everything I've done in this has been based on research done in the Caribbean for the Caribbean. So we cover all the islands of the Caribbean from far north all the way down to Trinidad. And I think I might have to, because I had a conversation with someone the other day and they said, why isn't Guyana in there? So I might have to consider getting some Guyana-related data to add to the system so we could have that in there as well. Pest and disease management, of course, because you're able to fit in that information on the health management side, you're able to track which animals perform better, are more pest resistant, and then able to push your farm in a particular direction. And of course, the offline functionality, which we will soon have completed, and you will not have the issue of lack of connectivity to be able to input your data. One of the other things I'm currently working on as well is using RFIDs or RFIDs to be able to scan an animal, pull up the data related to that particular animal, so you don't really have to go searching for which animal you're looking at. You could just simply use your device and scan that animal and be able to pull all the data and work forward from there. So these are some of the things that we have been working on. Of course, it's going to be a process in the initial phase. You would have to put that base data in. And that becomes important, especially for larger farms where you would have to put individual animal information to make sure that you can track individual animals, which, I mean, your chain is only as strong as the weakest link. So if you have weak animals, you have animals that are very prone to pests, it's going to weaken your entire herd. So rather than waiting to see when that animal becomes weak, using the data that you enter, you can track that and see that early enough, and then moving on to phase 2, be able to do daily monitoring, and it just becomes, because you only really need about 15 minutes to enter data for 20, 30 animals. 15 to 30 minutes, you have all your animal data in. From the time you do your first data entry, it's just weight gain, feed, and the basic things. If you're doing any kind of medical interventions, you add that in and you move on. And that data is there in chart form that you can export. We also have a card. Well, I call it a card, but it's basically a summary for each individual animal, a full summary of the animal's history that can be generated from the system just by a click of a button. So you don't really have to wonder, how am I going to get this data off? You could go on, you have an animal that you take into market, you pull that, you print out the thing, and anybody ask any question, you show them the data. And you can move forward. And eventually, with the phase 3, we will be able to get the offline data collection, and you can really see your return on investments. And that's basically what the system will do. As I said, it's cloud-based, everything is real-time. I forgot to mention that you're able to manage multiple farms on the system. The way it works is that each farm becomes like a profile, and when you select a particular farm, which is just a drop-down that's always available, you can be at one farm now and be at another farm and get only that farm's data available to you. So people who have farms in multiple locations are able to track what's happening on each farm without having that data mixing and getting more confusion. All right, and again, it's Caribbean-based, which helps us here. It's really important because a lot of the data that we have coming to us have been from outside, from countries that have a different kind of environment and ecosystem that really does not translate to what we have here locally. So my goal was to make something that is for us, by us. So what we have, we can work with it, we can trust it because it was made for the Caribbean specifically. All right, and easy to keep inventory on your herd, easy to keep your full data and monitor and grow your farm, because at the end of the day, we really want to see how our investment is growing. We don't want to stay in the same level. So I'm looking at my herd right now and I'm saying, these 2 particular goats, I want to cross them with that goat that I've been eyeing for the longest while. So I know the outcome of that crossing is going to be better goats. And then when these goats grow up, I'm going to take these goats and I'm going to cross them with a better male so that the rest of the goats that they make are going to be better. Eventually, I'm going to be harvesting my goats every 7 months rather than waiting a year and a half, like how we usually do in Dominica. So the goal is to have the shortest space of time for harvest so that you can really see that return of investment easily. Okay? And that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Riviere. Thank you. We're moving swiftly, and we're going to welcome our final speaker, Mr. Robert Tong.
Yeah, my speech is a very short one, 5 minutes. Keep it short and to the point. So, good morning, everyone. Almost afternoon. Farming is a business, And I'm an entrepreneur. I am strictly business. You're in business to make a return on your investment, right? If you don't make a return on your investment, it means the money you took from the bank, the money you took from family and friends, you're not going to repay, and they're eventually going to get upset with you, right? It needs proper management, right? And controlling cost, protecting your assets, and maximizing your returns is critical, right? So you buy an item, you sell an item for $100, more than likely you paid $50 for that item. It means you have $50 left over for your operational expenses. Most companies are not making more than, let's say, 15% on what they have, right? So one of the biggest threats to farm profits in Dominica is perennial larceny. The theft of crops and animals across the region. Farmers, from what the information I have, farmers lose as much as 45% of their harvest each year. That is a huge amount. Even if it's 15%, that's a huge amount. That is money that would be amazingly great if it was in your what? In your pocket or in your bank. The question is, what can we do to do that? So that's real money gone. Sometimes an entire season worth of work is gone. And I mean, I've seen stuff on Facebook and stuff like that where, I mean, your whole crop is gone, and that's just crazy. All right, so today we want to focus on a system, an affordable system that we could use to do that. Sometimes we hear about these huge amounts, and we say, oh my God, we can't afford that, we can't do this, it's not for us, and as a result, we just blank it out. So today, I want to focus on a solar-powered camera with a SIM card that helps farmers monitor their land anytime and anywhere. See if you can go to the next slide. Okay, so for some reason, I think you got the wrong information, but that's fine. So imagine you're a farmer, right? You're away from your farm. You have no idea what's going on at your farm. Zero. Until the next day when you get to the farm. But just imagine you're on the farm and you hear that the village, what do we call them, thief? The village thief is on the prowl, right? How do you know if he's on your farm, right? There's a lot of rain. How do you know what's going on your farm? But just imagine you open your app, right? And you can see what's going on at your farm. Without even opening your app, if someone comes onto your farm, you can get an alert because it has motion the sensors and to detect. And you don't need 50 cameras. All you need is one camera, because the question is, how many of our farms are extremely huge, right? So you open up your app and you can instantly see what's going on your farm live. Your pigs are where they should be. Your dashing patches untouched, and most importantly, no intruders. And it's exactly the same thing we do at our home. We have a motion sensor. I remember once a guy came into my house, and I remember for weeks, I would come into the house and I would look around, to see if somebody was there. I even think I could smell the person at the time that they came. So it has all kinds of effects on you. So when the alarm company says, hey, Mr. Tong, something's wrong at your house, the motion sensor came off. All I would do is go on my phone and look to see if someone was there. So you can do exactly the same thing with a weatherproof solar-powered camera with a SIM card in it, right? That's all you need. So it may seem like a lot, but it is not a lot. Now, if you have that on your farm, how much are you going to save? Anybody here is a farmer and had person steal their produce? Did they steal $10 or more? How much more? A lot. All right. Did that impact you in a negative way? All right. So just a simple camera system which you can mount on any tree or any pole. Obviously, you put it the way you want it to be best suited. It's weather resistant. It runs entirely on solar power, no electricity, and that's another thing that we have to begin to use to be smart. It uses a SIM card just like a phone, so it connects to mobile data. No Wi-Fi and no complicated wiring. But a lot of us like to make excuses. The first thing we said, boy, a camera is expensive. I'll tell you how much it's going to cost. Boy, I have to pay, what, $25, $30 every month for the SIM card? How much is that a year? You're all business people, right? How much is that a year? So let's say $50 a month for the SIM card. How much is that a year? $600. How much did they steal in the first month? How much they stole in the second month? And over the year, how much have they stolen? Have they stolen from you? Thousands of dollars. Whereas you could have technically protected that with a $600 SIM card and a camera that costs less than $500 on Amazon. Does that make sense? All right. So, but just like other persons said, and I remember Mr. Grant did a session on artificial intelligence, and he said he was asking us which device collects the most amount of data, and all of us had different things, and none of us got it right. And he said it was a camera. So a camera can see you walking. It knows what day of time you always walk on that piece of property. It knows technically if I'm walking upright, right? And if you add a little bit of artificial intelligence, if I start to limp, it can technically detect that. True or false? The same thing that my friend over there said, if the cow or the goat is lying down for too long, is that a sign? Is that a signal? So if you add additional software to those cameras, it can actually detect all of these things, right? The same thing he talked about the equipment for somebody. So you can add additional stuff to those cameras to see where plants are starting to wilt. And then you can know that, you know, smart devices, you can add it, what do you call it, Internet of Things. You can add the little devices to say, hey, there's not enough water and stuff like that. But I really wanted to stick to a very simple, basic system whereby you can use a camera. It can monitor your pigs, goats, chickens. It can watch over your crops. Guess what? Workers. You all said workers are a major issue. True or false? So I hire someone to cut some grass for me and say, yeah, man, I'm going to do a whole day work for you. He comes there at 8 o'clock, and by 11 o'clock, he's gone. Or somebody's there, and before they start to work, I've never smoked marijuana and worked faster. I've never smoked marijuana and done anything faster. I've done it nicely, but not faster. Impossible to be faster, right? You do it nicely, but not faster. You know, some people also drink, some people drink alcohol to do the same thing to work on the farm because it's hard work. So with the camera, you can see all of that. With artificial intelligence, they put a camera in a bar, in a restaurant, and they could see which staff member made more cups of coffee than the other one. So you automatically know who to give the raise and who to get rid of. So that is the power of us having a simple camera, a solar-powered camera on your farm with the information, so you know what time the guy comes to work. He's supposed to give you 5 hours, but he's giving you 1 hour of work every day. I mean, come on, something has to give. Right? Storm preparedness. A lot of times there's a storm or some water issue going on, and with your camera you can actually see what's going on. You could see where that water was passing. You could see where there's certain issues of pooling and stuff like that. So the camera can give you a lot of information. And like I said, very simple. A camera on Amazon will cost anywhere between $300 to $500. A data plan is about $45 to $50. So really, your initial cost is $1,000. Your first year's cost is $100. Is $1,000. Your second year cost is it's just the cost of the SIM card. So even if it lasts you 3 years or 2 years, the first time somebody comes and takes by you, even if they come with their hand and a bag, they're taking a couple $100. Now imagine if they came with a pickup. Right? Or if they came on a motorcycle, they're taking a lot. They're taking way more than what you have here. So, okay? So, it's just I mean, you are the persons who are on the field. You really know. I'm sorry that I don't have my images and stuff like that, but I can send you I will share the PowerPoint presentation so you can see. But it's just really crazy, and a lot of money is being taken away from you. You're working so hard, and then someone is coming and taking that. But again, when that person comes to the farm, what's going to happen? You're going to have data. You're going to either catch the person there, but you don't necessarily want to catch the person because you never know if the person is stronger than you, right? But then you'll have video evidence to show. I always tell people, don't put one camera, put two cameras. They always look at the camera at the top, right? And they always bend down their head. So make sure you have a couple of hidden cameras at that level, and you'll definitely pick them up. Okay? You will know when they're going to come because you will see when they always come to your stuff. And you can wait and say, hey, don't come there again, otherwise. There are also smart cameras, right, that has a pepper ball in it instead, right? So if you're within 50 feet of your perimeter, it'll shoot it at your foot. If you're within 10 feet, it'll shoot you. But I'm not talking about a real shot, a pepper ball. So it hits you with a color, a paintball, with paint, and it also smells, which means it's easier for someone to pick you up if you run and hide somewhere. So the technology is there, and it is really not expensive. So the question is, what do you gain, right? What do you gain? You gain 24 hours live view on your phone. And all of us have cell phones. So we have to sometimes stop making excuses. We can do these things. Motion alerts, so you don't have to go there and see it, and you get an alert on your phone, and you'll know that someone is actually at your farm. Some people like to come and steal at night. The cameras have night vision, which means you can still see who is on your farm. It works with no electricity, so they can't go and cut the line, because some people will be smart. They can't go and cut the line for your Wi-Fi because it is all using the stuff. Times have changed completely. Right now, you can buy the Starlink. So if you're a farmer that has more money, you can have a Starlink that will give all of your devices internet coverage. And again, based on what you're saying that people are stealing from you, it can more than adequately cover that cost. Because you're talking about thousands of dollars that you're losing every year. And for under, what we said, under $1,000, you can take care and reduce that number. Obviously, you're not going to stop every single thief, but at least you can significantly reduce the amount of money that you are losing. So farming is hard work. You invest time, money, and passion. Technology like this doesn't replace the farmer. It empowers farmers. With one small device, you gain control and reduce theft and make better decisions. The PowerPoint I had also had this a QR code. You could actually just click on it and go straight to Amazon and purchase that camera. So in less than 2 weeks, you could have one of those cameras on your farm. If you have more money, you can put more cameras on the farm. And like all the other presenters said, there's so much more you can do with those cameras to increase your farming returns. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tong. Very quick and to the point. Yes. So we're calling all our distinguished panelists back to the table. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're looking at your program, you will see where we come to the open discussion right now. So if you have any questions, there should be a microphone. They can come here? Okay. You come up here and you ask. But to get the ball rolling, one of the words that I think all of the panelists used that word was data. And it symbolizes that data is very important. With adequate data, you can increase productivity, and by increasing productivity, you increase your income. So farmers' data, NEON data is very important, okay? And we have the tools. What's the name of the app again? Coco Toolbox. I don't want to make the mistake I made earlier. But a question to my friend, Mr. Ishmael. A question to you. You spoke, a lot about drones, and you went very in depth. The drone services that your department offer, is it available for farmers island-wide? How do we access those services?
Okay, well, yes, the services that we have there available to farmers worldwide is basically a digital extension service. So if you would need any analysis of your land done, you can have a request sent through your regional office, and then the drone team will come in, will prepare the flight plans and get you the outputs that you would need. So yes, it's something that we have available to farmers if need be.
Okay, good. So we have a microphone now. You have a question? So we have a question from the floor. Wait for the microphone. Yes. Introduce yourself and go ahead. Yes.
Okay, so good morning to everybody. I'm Connie Sentilia, the co-owner, the owner of AgroLeaf. I wanted to know, if it have a cost towards the services, if they need.
And who's the
For the
question?
drone.
The drone or the drone?
For the time, we don't have a cost now. Like I say, it's a service provided by the state. So once the extension office can help, then we'll come in and facilitate for the farmer. No cost as yet.
Thank you.
Oh, we have a question here.
Good morning. Thank you very much. I'm actually officer within the Ministry of Agriculture panel for their insights. Most of the information, you would be surprised that I was really with Macaulay in terms of what we've been doing so far, and also with Mr. Rivera, and I know Robbie, the businessman, has pitched. Also, I'm very proud of Jeffrey. He is in PICAD, remember, when we did our first interview. I am disappointed that with all the advances in STEM, technology, girls in science and technology and mathematics, there is not one female representative on the panel. And with cross-cutting in terms of technology and agriculture, I would have felt that with all the females that I work with within the Ministry of Agriculture projects around the island, that one female, if not at least a female moderator, not to slight you, Mr. White. So I'm just asking, is it that females and women are not interested in technology and agriculture, that they cannot be found on island? So this is my question.
I can't answer that question. Well, what I can say moving forward, this is the beginning of many discussions to come, and I believe that the organizers has taken note of your comment, and will look at fixing that up moving forward, Yeah. Agreed. Yes.
Good morning, everybody. Midden Larrock, head of the investment unit, Ministry of Agriculture. First of all, congratulations to the panel. Well done. I did count it 18 times. AI was mentioned 18 times, so I took note of that. With the introduction, you can see that the diverse form of application of AI in agriculture. And the more we have applications, is the bigger servers we're going to need. And these servers are going to overheat, produce heat, and they need to be cooled down. And to cool them down, you need fresh, available, clean water, which is going to compete with, Mr. Bruni mentioned, in the agro-parks, where you have aquaponics, you have the use of water in technology. That's one of the negative parts of the Korean model, that they need that clean water, which is now competing with the very same agriculture that you want to impact. So we have to just be careful with the applications. While they have advantages, it's going to use natural resources that are so limited that we need in the development of agriculture. So I just wanted to bring that out. Also, with the gentleman on the goats, I wanted to know, like, for traceability reasons, how would your software help with pulling out the data that's necessary from a sick goat in a batch of other goats? How can you pull it back from the to the farmer, and that kind of traceability? So I just wanted you to explain a little. Thank you.
All right. Well, as I stated, we have the ability to produce like a health card. So that's something that can be made a requirement by the supermarkets, for example. We want to know what's the health status or the health history of the animal that has been slaughtered, so you can produce that along with whatever meat you're supplying. If it's a requirement, then it's easier to track. The animals, as I said, they have their own digital ID, and I know we use, well, when we do larger farms, they have the air tags, etc., that would be permanently attached to the animal. So that way you can match the physical animal with its data. And when you do butchering, example, you produce the meat, you have to probably supply that kind of data. But the system does have the ability to produce that data for you.
With regards to your comment about the amount of water needed because of the cooling down of the servers, well, in smart agriculture, you use 95% less water than traditional agriculture. So you have a lot more water available for cooling down the servers.
We'll get back to you. We have somebody there. Let's go ahead. Yes. Okay.
Pleasant morning, all. I'm Dr. Mario Kazimi. I'm the technical coordinator within the Ministry of Agriculture in terms of policy and planning. Mr. Larrock brought up a very interesting point there, which I was actually passionately researching during the discussions. Because yes, the agenda, as we look at it, leveraging digital tools for sustainable agriculture, is within one of the, in terms of the digital transformation agenda for the government of the, I think is the coordinator of the digital transformation project, where a lot of emphasis is being placed on what? Data management, data storage, data retrieval. So the snippet that Mr. Larrock actually highlighted there is something of relevance to us within a small island economy like Dominica, where the availability of fresh water is actually of concern. Even WASCO, as recent as 2023, reported their concern with regards to the integrity of our watershed. So yes, in the bigger picture of things, the epicenter with regards to data storage, AI technologies, but within the context of agroecology and sustainability, we have to say as to how far we can go. Because really and truly, here's some stats that actually have me so passionate about that topic. Here what this is. Year 2027, in terms of the water demands for management, 6 billion cubic meters of water will be required for the same processes about requirements and water consumption requirements to process and manage that very data we're talking about. So for example, when we speak about Dominica and we think about ourselves as having 365 rivers, and here we are abundant resource. But in the context of this kind of technologies there, we really and truly have to look at it objectively in terms of what are the environmental implications in terms of that forward thrust that we are actually proposing for ourselves. Because here next data. For every single query that AI uses, it uses 16 ounces of water. For every single query. For every single time we make a query using artificial intelligence, we consume 16 ounces of water. So that is irrelevant. So I beseech everyone, they just type in the words AI technologies and water consumption, and you can see the statistics that is used. So for example, 550,000 gallons per day of fresh water is consumed in terms of those kind of technologies. So yes, we're embracing it, but as to the framework that we now need to put in place in terms of safeguarding ourselves there becomes relevant in the discussions. And we have been having these discussions for a long while now. Here the Digital Transformation Technology Project has been on for a while. But again, the missing links in terms of how we now frame our discussions in taking advantage of the opportunities. Because we cannot deny, because Mr. Rivia spoke about some wonderful apps that actually he's been developing. And it had me thinking, because as we now integrate the economy in terms of services, basically the silver economy, there's relevance and possibilities for those kind of entrepreneurship initiatives. So yes, but with caution, a lot of caution, because yes, we see those technologies being promoted in first world developing states, but at what environmental cost and footprint can we actually bear the brunt of this kind of technology? So that is just a little bit of relevance here, because I think that at that level of discourse, it is relevant for us to start to incorporate all the modalities that will actually have us taking full advantage or being in the negative brunt in terms of the consequences or the challenges that we not necessarily have fully discussed. So that is just some relevance. I have some other points to discuss, but I will take advantage for someone else to share their thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you. So let me respond to this. So many of you who are on the internet right now, who are looking at different things, would have seen in the last month that topic is high on the agenda, where people are saying the amount of water that is being used and stuff like that. So some of the information you brought up, Dr. Kazemi, is actually incorrect. So it is important for us to look at all of the sides and research it properly, because I can pull up information right now, especially in terms of the amount of water being used. It's like, so we need to take, we need to look at both sides properly and look at it. One is that what you're saying is very important, but it's not going to actually affect us directly in Dominica. These servers and server farms that you're talking about will never be in Dominica. Let me just give you an example. The data center that my son works at in Canada, right? It uses 44 megawatts of power. Dominica's usage is what? 20 or 15? 18. So those size of farms that you're talking about will never be in Dominica. However, we all know about climate change. Whatever happens over there will eventually impact us throughout the world. So I just think that that topic is very new, and we have to look at it properly. We talk about water. Yes, the water is used to cool down the servers, but this water is going to evaporate and go back and eventually fall back down. So all I'm saying, it is very new, and we have to look at both sides properly in terms of doing that. You will see another guy, what's his name? I can't remember his name. He'd say, hey, yes, AI takes a lot of power to generate a video for you, but if I had to do the video the regular way, I'd have to take a car, I'd have to take 15 people, I'd have to drive somewhere, I'd have to fly, I'd have to use a plane. So we just have to take our time and look at it properly and make sure we have policies and things in place to address that. But the biggest issue is that most of it will not be here, it'll be in the US, and when they cough, it affects us in some way or form or whatever. So it's just that we have to just take our time and look at it properly and make sure we have policies in place to ensure that we protect ourselves. But like I'm saying, the biggest impact is not going to be from us. It's going to be from the first world countries that will still come back and impact in some way or form. Just like we have the, what do you call it? Seagrassum is getting worse and worse and worse. Is it us that's actually generating it? No, but we still have a part to play when it comes to that.
We'll take one more point on that.
AI?
On that, yes.
All right, so let me just clarify more technically as far as the AI thing. For instance, currently, my team and I just completed like building an AI system. We had it at the Tech Expo. Now, you kind of have to understand what an AI system is. An AI system is basically a computer. An AI is open source, like what R and all of that. So the AI is actually just a model that you download. What is important is how much of a bigger model you can load. Now, for those gamers in here that play games, the AI uses graphics card memory. So what you need is a lot of graphics cards to load the models. So right now, we have about 120 gigs of VRAM, which is video RAM. And we can load the DeepSeek model, which is 70 billion parameters, which is about 70 gigs of data. But that runs on a machine in the office, and that can probably serve an island, in a sense. If everybody is using that one server, obviously it's gonna require a lot more power and stuff like that. But for islands in the Caribbean, you don't need a full data center. You can run your own AI system in your current data centers that you already had. All you need is a couple of graphics cards, and you have it locally, and you will not need the cooling and all of that. That is for the bigger countries, and if we ever start importing the AI. One of the sort of thing, we have geothermal, which is what AI companies are looking at. So your concern is still, we have to wait and see. But it is something that is actually true, that if it does come to our shores, and AI is rapidly increasing, and companies are not turning back right now. Like, there is no turn back. So, and again, when I made my point earlier that the Caribbean needs to sort of align themselves with this is either you are producing from AI or you will be made to consume. You're either way. Now, the Caribbean can take advantage of this wave. It's like everybody now have a Mercedes-Benz. It's up to you now to drive that Mercedes-Benz. But we can go do the usual Caribbean culture thing where we look, the Mercedes-Benz have 4 wheels, okay, it's black. Let's put some policies in place for that and not drive it and let everybody come and drive and be miles away from us. And then we decide, oh, let's start it now. But when it starts, it's like, is it electric? Is it? So we need to really decide on rethink how we implement things and implement things in parallel. We cannot wait to figure out all the different negatives of AI. We need to sort of, while we integrating it, we are setting the laws and moving forward with it. Because if not, we are going to get left behind. But your point is a valid point, and it's something that we need to take in consideration as we move forward.
Well said, well said.
Yes, sir.
So we're moving
my
on.
name is Julito Coffee. I just have a few questions, nothing much. The panel had some very insightful presentations. As a young farmer, it's very interesting to me. But a thing I want to get to is that, like in other symposiums before, I actually heard similar discussions about the access to the same technology and drones and so forth and whatnot. And I want to know, like, if it's actually very difficult to access these type of equipment, so is it just a matter of a lot of red tape and restrictions in terms of like customs or duties access to actually bring down some of these technologies? Because in terms of the drones, before, as I say, I've been to symposiums, I've seen people from other countries implementing, young farmers like us, implementing some of those same drone technologies, spraying the crops, doing stuff like that. And since I've seen that, I've never seen personally in Dominica any of these drone practices have been implemented. So I don't know if that is a hard feat to reach for our country or whatever the case is, or for young people to access it, or because of like certain taxes and restrictions not allowing the young people to be able to bring down some of those particular types of technology. Because I went to a trade show in Santo Domingo and I actually saw a drone from that same company, the DJI. Yeah, I actually bought a camera from them up there. And the same drone, I find it was fairly reasonable. And I remember a young fella from Antigua in the last symposium we had, and he was giving us an idea of how much he paid for his drone. So I don't know the difference in terms of the logistics of how they stuff working. And I find like to access that particular type of drone in Santo Domingo based on the cost that I was given for the drone and the other accessories to it, it was just like, I would say, 1,005 US or like 1,000 US in Santo Domingo. And the young fella I met in the symposium, and he was like, yo, bro, I'm in Antigua, located in Antigua, and I actually paid $26,000 for his drone, you know what I mean? And for me in Dominica, I check like, boy, if that had to reach Dominica, what would it take for a young person to own one of those drones in Dominica based on my experience and what I've seen before in certain forums? And one more thing about the drone, is, shit, I kind of forget, so, yeah.
Thank you.
So can I answer like the part about how we can probably work on that, them red things and restrictions in terms of like electronics coming in and how we can make that easier for farmers and young farmers to access those things?
Okay, well, the thing about it is until recently, the drones was something that was fairly new to us and the Caribbean. So because of that, we have seen a lot of rapid change in terms of policy. Like we say, everybody trying to secure things. As we using them, we determining what is the best things for us. We also have a lot of negatives. People fear for their privacy, people fear for their safety, people fear for a lot of things. So because of that, we have policies being put in place. Currently in Dominica, it's a matter of simply registering your drone. So all drones have a serial number. When you order that, the customs department will take that because, like it or not, it is not a toy but an aerial vehicle. Yeah. So what that means is that the drones will be operating within the airspace with everything else.
Sorry, I remember the question. A lot of those drones I see flying is like they need certain authorization and license from the same, I guess, air authority. So like if an individual farmer have it, does he need permission just to fly from like he always need permission when he needs to settle to fly?
No. Okay, so there are different levels. Even in the US too, there are recreational flyers, then you have commercial flying. There are drones for recreational flying and then drones for commercial flying. So it's based on what level of drone you would need. The restrictions come from the same company that make the drones firstly. So DJI, there's a FlySafe software. What that does is that is an integration of all airports within the world, and that forms a safety net. So what you have is you have geofencing so that they prevent the drones from flying too high or too close to airspaces. We have flown airports here in Dominica, places that other drones would not be able to take off. It's just a matter of, once again, going to the necessary authorities. DASPA is responsible for aerial vehicles. So you go to them, you would get a letter from DASPA, but that would not be the only go-ahead. Even if DASPA authorizes you, the letter would have to meet requirements by DJI, and they would do the unlocking. So really and truly is getting the authorization from your local authorities and sending it to the international people, and that will give you the freedom that you need to use your drone as you need to. In terms of the cost as well, once again, brother, it's based on what you do. You have simple models like your Phantom 4s, you have simple models like your Mavics that would cost maybe 2,000 US, 1,005 US, the same price. However, if you have enterprise models, so like your Matrix, the ones with the different payloads in terms of multispectral, we have the sprayers. These are from a different line. So these are really for commercial operations, and they will cost a lot more. But then your return on investment over the years would be good. Because basically, if you were to hire a team of men to be spraying bananas for you, like we say Black Sigatoka, let's say you're a farmer with somewhere of 5 to 10 acres, you have to pay people to de-leaf, you have to pay them to spray, you have to think of the chemicals, you have to think of the mode they employ. The chemicals might not be the best, so you have a lot of wastage. By simply purchasing that drone, you would have spot applications, which would reduce the labor and also the cost of the inputs for the spraying. So over time, you will see your returns on investment. But for a simple farmer who just wants to understand his land and get into photogrammetry, if you're interested in it with the drones, what you do is you buy a simple drone like the Mavic or the Air 2. That is a drone for cinematography, so you can take nice pictures and shots of your farm as well. But you would be able to do mapping. The softwares, if we're talking about the cost, you have Drone Deploy, which is one that is pretty easy to use, but there's a cost associated with it. And then we also have open source. Take note of that word as a young farmer, open source. Open source means it's free for use, and we have softwares like that for the drone, so things like WebODM, Pix4D, that you can make simple flights for little acreages, which would suit us here in Dominica for absolutely free. And you can have that data readily available to do some of the things that I was doing there, brother.
Just a very important point. Too many times in the Caribbean, we try to do everything ourselves. We just said that a drone can do an amazing amount of work in a very short period of time. So it really makes no sense for one farmer to buy a drone to do all of that. They're supposed to be cooperatives, come together as a team, buy that one drone, so as opposed to spending $1,000, but if let's say it's $10,000, each person puts $1,000, and that drone can do more work for those 10 farmers than you'd ever need. And you can even outsource it and rent it out to somebody else. So I also want us to start thinking, we need to start thinking that we have coming together. It's just like when I saw the list of speakers here. The first thing I said, what? I do not want to come here and say the same thing that Daniel says, because I know more than likely we may hit the same thing. So I called him. Whereas many times you're going to say, boy, I'm going to call Mr. now because I have to come out there and show that I'm better than that person. So it's very important that we need to begin to work together as teams to make sure, because this is bigger than all of us.
Yeah, use the mic.
Okay. So we need to think innovation, right? And we are very small. I think the other thing in the Caribbean, we always think we're big, we're tiny, we're small. So when you talk about a smart farm, as the guy went to Korea, there's no farm in Dominica that's probably quarter of that size. Nothing. We're not doing 10% of what they're doing. So technically, when you talk about smart farm, we should probably think about a network of farms. So the drone that we're talking about does not work for one farm. It works for all the farms. All the stuff that we're talking about, it works for every single farm. So you simply just leveraging everything across the farms. So now when you talk about a $10,000 drone with multiple payloads, the most you might have to do is give the drone a lift to an area, you set it down, and then you leave it and go, and now it's working in the Northeast, and it does it work for that period of time, and then the extension officers or whichever organization goes pick up the drone, gives it a little ride to town, brings it in the east or wherever, you drop it down, you turn your back, the software already knows what work is laid out for it, and the drone gets up and it goes and it does what it has to do. So we need to stop thinking individually and start thinking collectively, because we're tiny. All the farmers together in Dominica, tiny. So those are the sort of thinking I think we need to take on with that approach.
Just to strong point, and just to add to what you were saying, you spoke about your colleague from Antigua. I know him, he's my good friend. And what he does with his drone, he offers services to other farmers. You know, so he's the only money for a drone in Antigua doing that, and he offers services to other. And it's a source of income for him as well. So I support what Mr. Tong and Mr. Grant said, that we need to start working more in cooperatives, you know, and doing things collectively. Yes, yes. You had a question?
Yes, I have a question for the person for the drone. If somebody interested in learning to operate the drones, or you have any plans for the youth and them to have like a class or something, you know, to teach them more about it and bring it more out there than just speaking like that about it?
Okay, well, I personally am an entrepreneur as well. So I have a company called Lion's Eye Services, and what we do is we specialize in all UAS services. So training is a part of that as well. I have trained cohorts of people here on the safe use, because it's not only just using it here, but the safe use of drones. So yeah, sure we do. We have that capability. Yeah.
Sorry to add again. Knowledge is power, right? One of the things that I do is that I have a you know, the little device you buy, what's it called? The no, the little speaker with the I don't know why I'm hungry. Alexa, right? A lot of us have Alexa. A lot of us go on YouTube. A lot of us go on TikTok, and we use it. I dare say we use it for the wrong reason, right? There are many opportunities that we miss out. You see the same training that you talked about? Different organizations have done that training free of charge in Dominica many times over. The only way you're going to hear about it is if you listen. So my Alexa comes on at 6 o'clock, and it puts on NPR News, so I can listen to certain things. Then at 7 o'clock, it goes off. Then it comes back at 7 o'clock, and I listen to DBS News, and you'll be surprised. Even when it comes to farming and technical service, there's a lot of information that goes out there that we miss out because we're not listening to the right channels. So I would just say it's important for us to listen to the right channels. And also, even when you're on TikTok and those stuff like that, anytime you hear something that you like, watch it 3 times. Anything you don't like, skip it, right? Because once you do that, the algorithm now starts to push that type of content to you so you can learn. Practically everything I know about artificial intelligence is from TikTok, right? And the amazing things that I can do on using artificial intelligence is amazing. If you go to one of my websites right now and you click and you ask it a question, you'll hear me speaking to you, and I'll answer every single question about my business in seconds. And if you ask it to me in French, English, Spanish, whatever, Robert Tong will answer that question in those languages. But you know it's not. You know that is when you'll know it's not me, right?
Thank you. You have it? Go ahead.
So just to bring home what Mr. Tong said there, most of the additional softwares that I use, so like QGIS, even the open source softwares that I use for the drones, I literally learned to use them off of YouTube, just based off interest and YouTube, sitting down with a laptop, and anything that you hear, you make your notes, you practice it, and you'll get it. So check out the internet for real.
Questions? We have a question here, over there. Lady in the brown. Yes.
It's time. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Natalia Lugay, Division of Agriculture, Livestock. And firstly, thank you to the panelists. It was a very good discussion. But my comment and question is for Mr. Riviere. First of all, thank you for your interest in livestock. I was very excited about your topic. Great work. And my question is, how soon will we expect to see something like that on the market?
Yeah, so I've actually been going through some testing phases. I have a alpha online. I've had a few livestock farmers testing, but the beta release is for the end of this month. So the beta release is the publicly available release that people can start using. And by the end of this month, I will have that available.
Second question. How do you intend to integrate what you are doing with the traceability system that the Ministry of Agriculture will have?
Well, that's a discussion I need to have with livestock. and the other people involved on how they want me to integrate. Because I'm very open to integration with the government services for data collection and whatever else they need.
Thank you. Any other question?
and she stressed his office number. Yes, yes. A question to Mr. Riviere and probably to Mr. Theophile. In your presentation, Mr. Riviere, you spoke of a farmer can go on the app and in like 15 minutes enter all the data that he needs to enter. Earlier on when Mr. Bruni was speaking, he mentioned that how do we get farmers who are already in practice of what they are used to doing. That's how my grandfather did it, that's how my father did it, that's how I will do it. What steps or what measures can be taken so that we could integrate digital literacy amongst rural farmers?
Okay, that's something that's really dear to my heart because I grew up on my grandfather's farm. I'm from St. Joseph, so I used to go up to the farm all the time and I saw what he did. I learned a lot from him. But he was also illiterate, so I knew there was no chance that he would get on a system like this. There's a lot of young farmers coming up right now, and in all honesty, it's really difficult to bridge that gap with farmers that have been doing that kind of manual labor for 40 years. But it's a lot easier to get with the new wave of farmers that looking for increases in efficiency rather than just, just something to do. So my concentration really is on the farms, the larger farms, specifically. Could do small farms, backyard farms, anybody that really has the animals that really want to work at the most efficient, peak efficiency, it's available. So it's training is available. I'm always available to assist farmers if they need help to put in data and stuff like that. And I have actually been talking about how we could get a few people available, maybe even based on commissions, to help farmers to put in especially the base data and really show them how they can simply put in that information moving forward.
Just a quick plug for the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project. We offer digital training, and one of the courses is Digital Literacy 1 and Digital Literacy 2. And we publicize these trainings. And what I would dare say is that when you hear it, not only think of yourself, think of the circle around you and try and get them to sign up to these things, because it makes a big difference. A lot of us sometimes feel that technology is for the young. I just realized actually yesterday I'm 57 years old, right? I know quite a bit because I'm willing to do it. I also remember prior to Hurricane Maria, many of our parents were not using the smartphones. They were never using WhatsApp. And they would say, I'm not into that. But as a result of them being introduced to it properly, they are sometimes using it more than us to talk to their family and friends all over the world. So really and truly, it is not impossible. It's a difficult task, I can tell you. It's a difficult task. But it's not impossible for us to get more of our people trained. And we dare say that because if we don't train our people, we are going to get left behind because others are going to come and they're going to come with the technology that makes them very, very different. So it's important for us to make sure that everybody is educated. And digital literacy is not just about using all the things, it's also about protecting ourselves, because now we have so much data on our phones, private information, personal information, our banking information, And it's so easy now in the whole issue of scams, and it's amazing what people are beginning to fall for. And the scams are getting better and better and better. They will send you a WhatsApp talking about some offer. And because you're in a tight spot, you're going to click on. Once you just click on it, you're opening yourself to stuff. If I don't know you and you send me an email, I will just scan. I'm not even going to open the email. I just delete it. If it's important, it'll come back at some point in time. You know, so it's very important for us to educate ourselves so that we can protect ourselves and we can use the technology. And especially if you're in business, you always want to be ahead and you want to be able to do things more efficiently.
Oh, it's on now? Okay, if it's not obvious, I like to talk tech. So, 2 points. With Danny, I tried to do a little farming myself. What I realized, right, because you said you're trying to get young persons to use the app and stuff like that, but then in the end you came back and you said you're trying to have a commission thing to have the older folks thing. That, I think, is where the value is. Because what I realized I heard guys say you can't take I used to hear people say you cannot take a seed of a lime and plant it because it's not going to grow because it's going to be a male. And this guy took some lime seeds, planted, and those lime trees growing a ton of lime short, because he planted it at a particular time. And I don't ask the guy what he did, but those are like some really serious limes from those short little lime trees. And he did it from a normal lime you cut, you take the seeds and stuff like that. So there's serious value in the elder and the folks that has done that because it's all in their head. And what AI, again, has allowed us to do is sort of take all of that information and map it out. This guy there, I talked to him somewhere, he probably doesn't remember me, but he has a ton of knowledge. Now, if we can now take all of that and leverage it into systems and stuff that we're creating, I mean, come, just the panelists here today, I didn't realize that this guy does R. And there's so much projects right now in AI and what AI can accelerate. I mean, the panelists here I'm really excited about what we can do now. The Korean guy, one of the things I want to the guy that went to Korea. One of the things I think that you should, that I think that is probably, you probably need to relook, is the fact that you think that it is expensive. Sensors are not really expensive. There are always levels of what you can do and how much you can do and how far you want to go, but we can leverage different levels of sensors. For instance, I just completed a project for some refrigerators in Barbados to keep track of refrigerators, reefers and stuff like that, with sensors. I just researched the sensor, the temperature sensor, found the one with the range that the reefer wanted, installed it, pointed to a website. The company has a full dashboard now of every single container and can tell what is going on in that particular container to prevent loss. Because if a reefer breaks down, this company loses a ton of money. But that is just to say that there are, and they would have to go to a much more expensive. The only reason they went to what I proposed was because it was affordable. So there are a lot of things that you can do. I think when you see those high-level robotics and type of thing, you're like, no. But trust me, there is a lot of sensors that are cheap, really cheap, that does the same thing. Soil moisture temperatures, motion sensors, all sorts of sensors that are really, really cheap and are coming down in price. As well, because these are the sort of things that AI is actually doing. It's also bringing down the cost of production for these things. So I think if you need to sit down with somebody who kind of knows this and can help you probably find those things. That's all. Yeah, collaborate, yes.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
So when I talk about the expense of it, I was referring to what the Koreans do. But Oh no, absolutely. That's I'm saying that we're heading in that direction, and I'm saying this is what the Koreans do, and this.
Because the thing is, when that's what we always think that we know what the Koreans are doing, and we've seen the results of it. So if I know I can make $1 million, why am I trying to make $100? So we need to get there, we need to get there, not try to step up to that. That just presents, to me, that just costs more money.
Yeah, I totally agree. However, the aid bank is not going to give you $10 million to start a farm.
That's what I'm saying. There are sensors and there are ways that you can probably get to the level without the expense. Yeah.
Okay, so just to bring a little clarification to what he was trying to say there. Normally, if you buy the, I guess, whole systems, somebody take the sensors, the processing board, everything, and they put them together in a nice package for you, and they resell that at a markup. But if we're talking about Internet of Things, which is very important to what we're dealing with here today, is understanding that you can get these things much cheaper. There are boards like the Arduino board that you can buy sensors like your moisture sensor, your light sensor, air quality, motion, and you go online, there's codes that people already put in forums that you can just copy and paste and build your own machines, your own systems. So you can already start having your smart greenhouse for maybe like about 60 US and some of your spare time. You get all the sensors, the board, you program that, you understand? Another thing I wanted to say is that we get in here, but what we have to realize is the connection. It's just like all the devices, the sensors, everything, for it to make sense within that system is the connectivity. I think that is what we need to take home here today. We have a lot of great minds in Dominica, people that are capable of doing a lot of things in terms of technological advancement. I think we need stronger networks. We need to communicate, we need to bring them together so that we can start functioning as a body, because everybody has a part to play. One of the things too, in terms of innovation, is that when I like the fact that we start to talk about making things specific for us here in Dominica, because sometimes we see something and it is good for one application, but then when you really start to think about how you can apply it locally, then you see it makes much more sense. What Mr. Tong was saying there in terms of the livestock and the camera, I was talking to Derek and I was saying that he mentioned something about a camera having a deterrent, some type of projectile that would shoot after somebody entering the farm. Something that affects livestock farmers much more than a thief is a stray dog. A thief might come and thief one goat, a dog will come and kill dozens. And there is no way of the farmer getting any compensation for that. Nobody knows what to do. It's just a problem for livestock farmers. And I think with a simple thing like that camera, if you have it installed and it's the same way it can deter somebody, it can deter the dogs too. So we need to start to look at technology as things that's specific and problem solvers. So it's not only solving one person problem. Like he said, he went to Korea and he saw their approach. But his thing is that in Dominica, what can we start to do right now to make that work for us? And I think that should be the take home for everybody here. Thank you.
Yeah. Strong point. We have one question here, one there, one there. Three.
Right,
three on that side. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, thank you again. My question is to you, sir. I'm not picking on you. I love your app. And it's because I love what you're doing that I need more clarification. So who verifies the information on the app in absence of the folks of Dr. Luga and the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock Department? How relevant can the farmer use that? Who are the custodians of the information? Or can you issue now a certificate and that person can go out and sell meat in absence of livestock? I mean, it's a little dangerous not having the ministry involved in that process because you need verification of that information on your app. And it's like the cat before the horse. You have to get involved with the ministry that actually deals with the farmers, that actually can verify your information and help you to even develop the app in conjunction with the work of the livestock department. So I just wanted to bring that there. Thanks.
being a livestock farmer myself and having worked with the government from the technology aspect, I actually have been on both sides. So I know the processes and I know how the government works. That's why I chose this path. Now we can talk. So now I have a completely working application based on what I know are some of the requirements from the government side and from the farmer side. And now we can talk about integration and validation from that side, because it actually is part of my model and my plan to have that discussion with the government. But I didn't want to come in empty-handed with dreams and visions and aspirations. I want to come in with something solid that they can see can work and will work for what we want. That was my model.
Okay, thank you. Your question online?
But in response to Danny's point, I think it's basically an app for record keeping for a farmer to monitor his own animals. So one of the options on the app would be healthcare. So for each individual animal, you can monitor a vet visit, the drugs you administer, the drugs the vet recommended, and then so it doesn't necessarily have to be in tune with the government protocols. But once the farmer has all the information, like any other commodity that's been done, once the farmer has all the information on the app, he can now translate to the vet unit, and they can verify, okay, the animal got worm treatment, whatever, topical, oral. But it doesn't necessarily have to be an app that has to be sanctioned by, I think, by the state, because it's not really an app to give a farmer that health certificate, but it's to verify and the farmer can go back. But it's not only health, it's record keeping, it's breeding, and everything else. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a sanction by the state. It's just that he has all the information that is done on his farm for his animal, and he now can show it. So it doesn't have to be, as I say, an app that has to be verified and sanctioned by the livestock unit. But he has the, and goes back to what Derek was saying. So rather than the paperwork from the fisheries collectors, everything is just, it's there already. And you can do a showcase it from the ministry.
Sometimes you don't get the correct information from the farmers, so I was just thinking the ministry would verify that information because they work with the farmer, to have correct information on the app, because you might have information on the app the farmer is going to use, and it's different from what the livestock department does. So if they work together, not only for the other side, especially if they stronger app.
Point taken on that. Next question. We have to wrap up in the next 10 minutes or so, so let's try and be brief. Yeah.
It's more a comment than a question because, oh, sorry, Cleve Seja from Dexia. More comment than a question. So this is a very interesting discussion in terms of AI and technology, etc. And the right words are being used in terms of consistency, in terms of scaling up. So when I listen to Jeffrey, for example, of the Korean model, the first thing that we are saying is that it is expensive, that is a challenge, is a drawback. And I think that the panelists and everybody recognizing that, then we probably have to build a business case, and the next step should be to be speaking to the financial institutions to say, these are the tools that we need for us to be able to compete. We just did a market visit in Miami, for example, and everybody's asking, let's say, for example, a buyer asks, do you have papayas? Oh, yes, I get excited. Yes, we have papayas. So can I get a container? And then you start sitting back down and saying, well, a container, you like a container with some papayas and something else. And well, okay, you have breadfruits? Yes, of course. Well, can I get a container? Everything is said in a container, not in a box. And that says to us a good thing, that it is unlimited, there is demand, now we must supply. And part of supplying is consistency and cost. If the technology allows us to reduce our costs and what we talk about cost of production, maybe the initial cost is high for real. So I think the next conversation should be with the panelists or with ICA, getting the financial people together, doing the modeling and presenting and saying, if we have a 14-story strawberry farm, there is capacity for it to be sold. And if there's capacity for it to be sold, we shouldn't be closing the door. You know, my friend from Portsmouth does goats. You know, there is unlimited demand for goats. So I think we should remove those things as maybe the absolute challenge. And I think the policymakers should look at how we can solve that for the young people because, or for farmers, because I don't think farmers will be able to solve that for themselves because as he's saying, well, I saw somebody with a drone, and how do we get a drone? But it's $26,000. But $26,000 can be had if the right conversation and the right model is presented. $26,000 will not be the problem. The problem will be how many do we need? You understand? So we come in with the information, we're telling the farmers and we're getting them excited, but I think we have to go back and do the rest of the homework. Now, they themselves are excited. They've said, yes, we agree. The marketers said, yes, we agree. And I think the next part now is to do the homework so that all of these beautiful things that we talk about can actually become a reality and we can actually get ourselves into those markets. Because, as you say, soilless, the markets will leave us, and the markets are leaving us. You know, before exotic fruits was something that you would come to the tropical islands for. Now, if you can fabricate the environment and grow the tropical fruits, then there's no need to come to us. You understand? So, thank you very much, and I think it's a very
strong comment there, Mr. Clyde. Yes. So we had your hand up for the longest while. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon to the panelists again. I would like to make a final comment. Basically, when I make comments, I actually use peer-reviewed information as my sole source. So erroneous information is unfortunate for me. I am an academic trained to utilize peer-reviewed information, information that has been extensively reviewed and presented to the general public for consumption. So the notion that I actually present erroneous information is unfortunate because I definitely have been trained to utilize academic peer-reviewed information as a reference for any argument, especially in an academic setting like that. Based on that now, I have heard Ms. Riviere made some comments and observations which I want to elucidate on. And one of the issues that he brought up was the revolution towards, and again, Ms. Seja just brought it up, soilless agriculture. And the emphasis that we are seemingly placing on a soilless agricultural system. That in itself has very pros and cons with regards to its application. Recognizing that, yes, the whole world now is furiously combating the issue of climate change, rising temperatures and how it relates to, and how it's affecting agriculture negatively. One of the issues facing agriculture is the whole issue of carbon. And we hear about the global markets for carbon and green bonds, etc., etc. When we start to shift agriculture from a soil-based to a soilless platform, what we actually inadvertently introduce into the system is the whole issue of increased carbon non-sequestration. Because the soil in itself is the world's biggest sequester of carbon. And that is what the whole globe is actually fighting against and trying to combat, i.e. climate change. So as we increase our agricultural practices away from the natural innate base and resource base, which is the soil, we definitely shift the balance towards shift the balance negatively towards the negative effects of climate change affecting agriculture, i.e. rising temperatures, which does not allow the plants to actually to be pollinated properly, etc., etc. Or at the end of the day, low yields, low income. So that is one. The other issue too is the relationship between soilless agriculture and protected agricultural systems. Again, the argument holds true in terms of the relevance of carbon capture. So in this equatorial region there where we are actually fighting increased temperatures based on our geographic location there, carbon capture in agriculture is important to us. And the notion that control agricultural systems, i.e. greenhouse systems, there is a technology that we should be furiously engaged in, there is a cautious step that we should be actually looking at based on our comparative advantage of having a 12-12 photoperiodic experience within the equatorial zones. So when we start to look at these technologies there, yes, they are promising, but there are underlying scientific principles within agriculture there that actually now needs to be reviewed. And like I said there, why would you want to actually limit your agricultural experience in an area where you have appropriate amount of light, 12 photoperiodic periods, and after now control that in a system where now you have to now depend on artificial lighting. So yes, technology advances, they are relevant, and we see them being applicable, a lot of them, but some of them that we definitely need to go into them there with caution. So the notion that control agriculture, that stems from a temperate environment system. So control agricultural systems was never developed in the tropics, ever will be developed in the tropics. We do not need these additional requirements in order to meet our food demand. So yes, technology is ever changing, but again, ever up for discussions in terms of its relevance. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to take one more comment from the panel. Yes, just one. One comment from the panel. And,
okay,
yes.
So once again, good points by Dr. Kazime. But once again, as we leave, I just want us to, like I said earlier, to get a really clear picture. Because what I noticed in that with us in Dominica is like our good friend here said that there's a big demand in the world for food and other things. But our problem is that we are a very small island that cannot supply a lot. So I think one of the things we should look at, first of all, is quality instead of quantity. And the second thing is when we look at, like I was saying, the drone imagery, so understanding our land, our topography, pairing that with our land use policies, pairing that with hazard maps, risk maps, you come to understand that the amount of land we have to work with in Dominica that is easy to work with and is a very small amount. So I think we should still not sweep these new technologies and new advancement under the rug, because in the future they might just be our saving grace. So that's just my 2 cents. Yeah.
Strong point from panelists there. We're going to jump to the closing now as we welcome Mr. Cyril to the microphone. I know some of you have more questions. This is a discussion that can continue, you know, but Mr. Cyril.
Good afternoon, everybody. I must say, I can see with the participation, the session was well liked and well appreciated. And just a few things in closing. First of all, I want to thank our panelists, Mr. Bruni, Mr. Tong, Mr. Riviere, Mr. Ismail, Mr. Theophile, and hopefully next time we'll have some Mrs. and Mrs. on the panel. I would also like to thank our audience for being so much involved and asking a lot of questions and keeping the discussion going. I know we could go on for much longer, but I know people have other scheduled appointments for the day. I would also like to give the thanks to Vibian TV for some support with our conferencing equipment and our cameramen and everything else. They gave us some good support today. But in closing, I want to highlight a few things that was said today, beyond just saying thanks. A few single terms came forward which I think we need to look at, beyond just being technology. First thing I say is collective action, which came up quite a bit of times in the discussion. The second thing is changing attitudes. And I don't think it's by accident that our demographic is a pretty young one, because we've become one of the cliche discussions in agriculture is the aging public, of the aging farmer population, and we need to get young people involved. It'd be interesting to note that in this discussion here, no one spoke about how deep to plant a banana plant, how much grass to give a goat, you know, how much water to give a lettuce. But talking about how to manipulate this thing and make it easier to do, easier to acquire that knowledge. So we realize that there's a change in what we do, not how we do it. Because we know how to plant dashing already. But how do we get more dashing out of our land? And that is what we're talking about today, how to maximize the use of our properties with the new technologies. Being very specific, I think that came up here today, Mr. Bruni alluded to the Korea situation, but how you can adapt these two things to Dominica. Mr. Grant, I should say thank him as well, also made us understand that, yes, specific true, but how quick do we do it? Do we be specific in Dominica and say, let's do it step by step, or jump into it one time? Because the step-by-step approach may mean that we are left behind. Another thing that came up today was being real time. Derek, Mr. Theophil highlighted the idea of that data collection systems where, because being real time, we can make our changes quicker and get our results quicker. And that, I think, one of the strengths of what was brought up today. Real-time information can lead to quicker changes. Adapting best practices, and especially for our last discussion here with Dr. Kazimi and the current situation. But it also comes about how can we use certain situations that maybe work in other territories, but adapt it to our conditions and make it work in our favor. Because what we don't want are wholesale changes. One of the things I've realized is in our parts, we accept, we implement, but we do very little research. And research is the key for development. So taking those things that have already been done is one thing. So some people say don't reinvent the wheel. But sometimes you have to make a wheel to fit your conditions. And I think with what we've begun doing today, applying some of the research of it, our friend from Cardi was the guest here to leave, utilizing some technical research and see how best we can integrate what is being done in the other territories and how it can work for us. And so that I say adapting best practices can work. And I think the last thing I want to close up with is, and we've seen happening today, is networking. Networking not from the chords concept, but the people. And even though we can go as much air as possible, but the main thing is people. And we have to have people to work together. And I think that was stressed a lot today. Networking, networking, networking. So once again, I would say thanks everybody for showing up. It also means that ICA has some more work to do in further discussion. I'll take Petra's advice, more work in inclusivity. I think that was an oversight, though we tried to, but it didn't work out. But also looking at further discussions along those lines and going more in depth, because we have seen certain areas had a lot more questions, and we could go on asking and discussing for the whole day. I don't want to talk too long because it's closing. But once again, thanks everyone for coming, and see you next time.
So, thank you very much, and we have refreshments on the next side. Thank you.